and gentlemen, let's go. We ain't got no time to waste. Let's go. You are now listening to Jason Anderson, and you are in the zone.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Scale 1 to 10, immediate number locked in. Beers, do you have a number?
I'd say so.
Should we say it at the same time? How do you
Say it
want
at
to do
the
this?
1, 2, 3, go.
4.
I put 0.
Oh, interesting.
I said,
Really?
I said, honestly, it feels like almost 0.
I'm shocked that I'm the highest of the group.
Yeah, well,
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I read a Friday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. That gets us off to a good start. I love that. Right before we started the show, have a little fun here in the studio with the mics off.
Secret zingers.
And now, we are ready for a beautiful, beautiful Friday. Man, last night when the sun went down was just gorgeous outside. It was gorgeous. It's beautiful. Hopefully today throughout the day can be the same thing. I don't know. I haven't checked the weather. I just know last night it felt really good, and this morning walking out, felt pretty good. It wasn't hot and sticky. Maybe it turns out to be that. But yes, beautiful, beautiful Friday heading on into the weekend. Thank you so much for joining us. It is The Zone. We head up until 2 o'clock on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Josh Briscoe, and Drake. We've got you for the next 4 hours to be a part of the show. You know that, 913-912-4810. The text line to join us to be a part of the show, 913-912-4810. Here's how the show lines up today. We'll hang out with Matt Derrick in the 11 o'clock hour from Chiefs Digest, and we'll talk some, this will be a surprise, some Chiefs football.
Whoa, awesome.
With Matt Derrick, yeah.
I love that stuff.
We're gonna change it up just a little bit with Matt Derrick in with us. Ever
Mostly
shrinking
do Fat Bear Week when I was gone. A lot of previewing that.
We haven't even talked about. You know what?
I saw his FaceTime on Sound Off.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. We haven't talked about that because on Friday we had him on before Sound Off, and I didn't realize the whole Fat Bear Week and the eating of the salmon and everything of swimming upstream like the salmon of Capistrano. None of that was, to my knowledge, Dumb and Dumber.
Okay. I've seen some of that. I was pretty little.
Never mind.
Yeah, it's a Nirvana album.
Flock like the salmon of Capistrano. We'll talk with Matt Derrick about Fat Bear Week and also about the Kansas City Chiefs and OTAs going on, some stories from OTAs, hearing from Justin Reed and hearing from Jawan Taylor and Blaine Gabbert calling Patrick Mahomes maniacal, comparing him to Tom Brady. They are maniacal. Maniacs, I tell you. You've got competitive prick, and then you've got maniacal. A lot of different ways to describe Patrick Mahomes. I just describe him as the best. Best football player in the world. I am not going to say the universe because I don't know if there's an awesome football player on Uranus. There might be. Maybe it's in Jupiter, Saturn, whatever it might be. I'm not going to guess that there's going to be no amazing football players that are living there and performing.
3 hours and 51 minutes to get that turned around for the cuts.
Very good. Tonight we got NBA game number 4, Denver in Miami. Game 4, we call it a must-win. It's not literally a must-win for Miami, but it's a must-win. It's not a must-win, but you can't lose it. Down 3-1, heading back to Denver. The ticket prices for the Denver Nuggets game right now for Game 5 in Denver is about $800.
Whew.
If Denver wins tonight, I think those may double.
Yep.
Because it is probably the last home game. If Denver wins tonight, the last home game will be Sunday? They play Sunday? I haven't even looked ahead, to be honest with you, when Game 5 is. Sunday or Monday or whatever. But if they win tonight and go up 3-1, because even if they lose in Game 5, Nuggets are probably going to win. in Game 6. So those ticket prices have been skyrocketing, but if they win tonight, it's going to be pretty amazing to see what those ticket prices do.
Monday
in
night,
Denver.
Game 5.
So Monday night, Game 5. Yeah, there you go. So
No NBA Finals game over the weekend is really odd. Like, I understand how the scheduling here is working, but
I think when they had 2-3-2, I think you would have the Friday, Sunday, or you'd have the one day off between the two in what would be Game 5. But now with the 2-2-1-1-1, you add that extra travel day in there. So, yeah. But I kind of wish it was 2-3-2. Therefore, my Game 6 prediction I'd feel better about because, Denver winning at home in Game 6. But who knows? I mean, Miami just win one more game tonight. That'd be great. 913-912-4810 is the text line. Speaking of ticket prices, we will talk with Ali Trost-Martin coming up at noon. Now, that is free, so
Yes.
you don't have to pay anything to be a part of that conversation and to listen into that. That is absolutely 100% given to you, presented to you, no cost to you.
use promo code ZONE for 100% off the cost to listen to that segment.
Also, if you use promo code ZONE, you can get one for free, but if you get one for free, you also get your second one of equal or lesser value for free.
Now, it is mandatory that you do listen to that, so please do read the fine print.
Yeah, that's true. Or you do have to pay.
Yeah, or you can retroactively just Venmo us $10.
It's a whole weird thing. But when we have her on coming up at noon, obviously we'll talk some sporting and some current, but Lionel Messi is heading to the United States and joining MLS and joining Inter Miami. And, I'd mentioned the Denver Nuggets and ticket prices, but
Yeah.
have you seen the ticket prices for the Miami FC?
I knew
matches?
that the rest of the year was sold out, and I know they've picked up about 5 million Instagram followers.
Yeah, they're
But
now the most followed MLS team. They blew by LA after the announcement was made, and Twitter too. I think Twitter they're the most followed MLS team since that announcement. But August 20th is the first game expected for Lionel Messi. They are taking on the big bad Wolves of Charlotte. I don't even know if they're the Wolves, but they're taking on Charlotte. That ticket price is now $300 to get in. It will not be $300 when I'm just looking at tickets for less. It will not be $300 when it gets closer to August 20th. That thing's going to be more and more, assuming he does make his debut there. If it's pushed back or whatever, then could go up or down. New York, their next game, traveling to New York. The get-in price at Tickets for Less is $480 for that game. When they travel to L.A., the get-in price for Miami v. L.A. is $700 at Tickets for Less right now. If you want to head to Miami to watch Sporting KC take on, or Lauderdale, whatever, take on Miami/Lionel Messi, that'll cost you $300 to get in, plus the travel, unless you're already down there. But it's still going to cost you $300 to get in. And to show the difference of before and after, Chicago's the closest that a lot of probably Midwest people can go to watch Lionel Messi. That's going to be the closest road trip for the Midwest sort of fans of MLS or fans of Lionel Messi to go watch him play. The ticket prices were about $52 to go to the Miami and the Chicago match. That's in October. The get-in price is now $340.
All of those numbers feel a little low, believe it or not.
The Chicago one, I would imagine, will continue to go up and up and up because I think more people will look at it and go, all right, here's the schedule. And if we want to go watch Messi and not have to fly, probably, can drive to Chicago, but you're also going to be paying $340 a pop, as it is right now. But you want to go watch him in L.A., it's going to cost you $700 to get in. That's not even, soccer stadiums, pretty much, there's not a bad seat in the house. We're not talking about nosebleeds in the last seat at Jacobs Field when the chain link fence is behind you and there's just nothing but openness, where my dad and I, sat at the first year that Jacobs Field was open, and they looked like ants on the field, but we were there in the first year, and Griffey hit a home run, and that was awesome. And I was scared to death because I turned behind me, and there was just a fence, a chain link fence, stopping you from looking at Cleveland.
Yeah.
And a very, very steep fall to your death.
Staring at your death, and even scarier, Cleveland.
That's right.
You will have a better seat than Jordan Love's mom for any of these games. But
that is right.
But still.
But the worst seat in the house is going to cost you over $700. So just interesting. That's the immediate impact of Messi agreeing to the contract to head to the MLS and Miami as opposed to going to Saudi Arabia. I don't know what those ticket prices would be over in Saudi Arabia.
Don't know.
I don't know many fans that would be traveling there just to watch Lionel Messi play. You could have traveled to Spain to watch him play if you wanted to.
Yep.
But now you're seeing those ticket prices just skyrocket, and I think you'll see more of the Apple TV subscriptions go up because people that may not have had MLS subscriptions, now I want to watch Messi, so I'll be paying for that subscription, whatever it might be. I already have me personally, but I'm just saying in general, if you don't have it, the Adidas gear for Messi and the Miami jerseys, that'll be out there. But the impact already in the last 24 hours of ticket prices just skyrocketing of what the secondary market is.
And
it adjusted quickly.
I don't have all of social media all together here, but for Instagram, Inter Miami is not only the most followed MLS team, they're more followed than any NHL team, and any Major League Baseball team, and any NFL team. They are the most followed American sports team on Instagram now, going from roughly 1 million to 6.1 million. That was, I think, Front Office Sports did the original math. The Patriots are just under 5. The Cowboys are at 4.5 million. The Yankees are at 3.2. But Inter Miami right now,
They've doubled the Yankees.
They have doubled the Yankees in terms of Instagram followers. And this is something I texted with Allie a little bit last night, getting the schedule lined up for today. And that'll be a fascinating part of the conversation about just, hey, are people ready for this? Because, and I think Inter Miami has known this. They've been in these conversations forever, right? Messi didn't just show up and said, I want a part of the team.
It's been like the last month and a half when people are talking about, hey, Messi may end up in the MLS, but he'll probably sign for the $1.5 billion in Saudi Arabia.
There have been conversations about it for more than a year to this point. Mike Ryan from the Le Batard Show has been right about this for like a year and a half. His victory lap has been very funny to watch because a lot of international soccer reporters, established guys, kept saying, no, this isn't happening. It's Saudi Arabia or Barca, but it's not the MLS. And now here he is. But I think Allie will certainly have a better actual bits of information on the infrastructure and the fan base and all of that. But I'm thinking now about like, hey, what if you were a social media intern for Inter Miami at the beginning of the summer? Like, all right, I'm starting in the MLS, and then maybe eventually I'll keep working my way through sports, maybe get to a bigger soccer club. And we have Messi now. Everyone is watching us now. It is just, there's so many waves of this. I'm really excited to hear Allie explain it much better than we can.
Yep, we'll talk with her coming up at noon, and then Mick Schaefer will hang out with him, KSHB 41 sports director here on this Friday. Number of conversations we'll get into, but let's start with Frank Clark. And he signs with the Denver Broncos, 1 year, $5.5 million. Haven't seen all the details of the contract if they're out. I haven't seen those. Are they out?
There were some. Yeah, let me go grab those.
Yeah, go grab those as we just talk about it, though. If you haven't heard, Frank Clark will not be returning to the Kansas City Chiefs. He will be heading to the Denver Broncos. So that whole conversation about, all right, so are they going to bring back Frank Clark? Or are they going to sign a veteran defensive end? Is that somebody like Carlos Dunlap, Melvin Ingram, Yannick Ngakoue, Frank Clark? Is there somebody out there that they can bring back? Chris Jones was on his I'm going to tweet about Frank Clark every day until you re-sign him, and that lasted 4 days. Then he stopped tweeting about Frank Clark. Maybe that was him just saying, I'm kind of tired of it too. I tried. I did 4 days, Frank. They didn't sign me in those 4 days. I got other things to do, right? I got my own contract to deal with. I got a lot on my mind right now. But obviously Chris Jones wanted the Shark to return to Kansas City and, quote, finish what they started, which is a really interesting way of phrasing it because they've won 2 Super Bowls together. I'm not sure what finishing what they started would be. Typically, that would be, hey, let's finish what we started and go win a Super Bowl. Keeping T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow together would be, hey, let's go finish what we started together as a group and win a Super Bowl. Frank Clark and Chris Jones no longer together in Sack Nation, which Frank Clark was sort of the president of Sack Nation in the playoffs. That's what he was. And Chris Jones had a big part of that in the dominance he had, whether it resulted in sacks or not. I know people look at the overall sack number and talk about whether that's good enough or not for Chris Jones, even though I think there's a much deeper view of Chris Jones' impact. But there is no more Frank Clark in Kansas City.
That was my first thought when I saw this was we're never going to see playoff Frank Clark again.
I was wondering who would get to the finish line first.
Good job, Drake.
There it is.
Just had to finish what I started.
Bang! It's a 1-2. It's
Broncos country. Let's ride to fourth place.
It's a 1-year deal worth, magic words, up to $7.5 million. This is per Schefter. The deal, though, includes, this is the real money you need to know about, includes a $5.5 million guaranteed base salary, $1 million in makeable incentives, and another challenging $1 million in incentives. Now, makeable is a bizarre word to use there. That could be likely to be earned. That could be just beyond likely to be earned. Obviously, last year he didn't play 17 games. So where were his sack totals and all of that? But a $5.5 million guaranteed base salary, I would have guessed the Chiefs were probably out at that number. Not by a lot, but I think they probably would have drawn their line maybe closer to 3, and it's not like they have a lot of flexibility right now. They kind of spent their remaining pocket change on Donovan Smith.
If so, there's the what was the way the not likely to
makeable,
be makeable, and then
more challenge, another challenging $1 million.
That would be being a part of a team that makes the playoffs. That would be the more challenging part. 50% of playing time in a playoff game this year is the more challenging $1 million bonus for Frank Clark, or incentive to get to that $7.5 million total contract. And good on Frank Clark, because I didn't think he would get $5.5 million on the open market. I didn't. The Chiefs certainly weren't going to pay him $5.5 million. In fact, if the news came down that they re-signed Frank Clark for $5.5 million, the response would have been, "Eh?
Yeah,
really? Wouldn't you rather take that 5.5 and then spend it somewhere else on somebody that would be a little more effective maybe throughout the season?" I mean, you drafted FAU, you signed Omenihu, you've got Karlaftis, Dana played pretty well last year. Would you rather have that $5.5 million? Could you take that $5.5 million, package it, and give it to like Hopkins or something? You know, so it's a fascinating sort of look at the reaction of Frank Clark, because he is beloved in this town because of the playoffs, while consistently being criticized, and one of the people that would be the venom pointed at during the regular season over the last couple of years of issues on this team and misallocating resources in a draft pick, first rounder that you gave up, and then paying $100 million for Frank Clark. And the whole, all right, does, ends justify the means? They've won 2 Super Bowls, but this was before they won the second Super Bowl, obviously, that we're talking about it, especially 2 years ago when he wasn't really good at all, but was like $28 million against the cap. I mean, it was just, that was the Chiefs taking their medicine. That was the Chiefs kicking the can down the road and going, we're not kicking it anymore because we don't want to then bite the bullet next year. We're just going to simply hold our nose, take the medicine. Hopefully that spoonful of sugar is a Super Bowl, but we're going to have to do that this year for Frank Clark. And he was the receiving end of a lot of frustration with Chiefs fans about how good, or lack thereof, Frank Clark was. And now he goes to the Broncos and signs somewhere else, and it is a fascinating sort of reaction of, oh, that sucks. I really wanted Frank Clark back. Damn it. And maybe it's a feel of, I really wanted Frank Clark back as a reserve,
right,
as a rotational piece, not as somebody $28 million against the cap from what he was bringing. And obviously the money changes expectations of what you can bring, but he has been a fan favorite with his comments, with his 2019 AFC Championship game over Tennessee win in which he was on the field with James Palmer talking about you can't back up. People said you can't back up what you said. Who? They don't know who I am. Gonna know it when I got this ring on my finger. Like that Frank Clark. The better take your ass back to Cincinnati, Frank Clark, after the AFC Championship game. That guy, the postseason sacks, all of that, beloved. It's been a really interesting ride for Frank Clark in Kansas City, from the trade to the money to the playoffs to then now heading to Denver to sign. And maybe it's because he signed with Denver. You know,
yeah,
if he
that
signed
never
with-
helps.
If he signed with like Seattle or something, like, good for him. Hey,
Hey,
nice
go-
job. I guess
so-
he played in Seattle. So if he signed
Anywhere in the NFC West would be
signed
fine.
with the Cardinals, like,
Yes.
hey, good job. Cool, man.
And it's funny because his legacy will be a really complicated, interesting one, and frankly, no pun intended. I think that over the next several years, the more difficult parts of that conversation will all be smoothed right over by playoff highlights and Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And may we all be so lucky. Like, I don't even think that's a bad thing. Just we're gonna remember playoff Frank Clark. And also, as a button for this deal again, Frank Clark will be the 7th highest paid Chief against the cap this year. He has a larger cap hit for the Chiefs than he does for the Broncos, just for this upcoming season because of the dead money they had left. Now, that's not real cash. It was already paid. It's prorated and all of that. But his dead cap hit for the Chiefs this year is a little bit under $7.7 million. Depending on what that extra million is, it's 5 or 6.5 in Denver for the deal that could be worth 7.5. All still less than he's counting against the Chiefs cap this year. But you're right to point out the complexity of it all, because for so long we had talked, and I think the second Super Bowl really does move the needle a little bit. We talked so much about overpaying and paying twice for Frank Clark, right? Because it was the draft pick and that huge contract. And you got production in big moments, but not the kind of consistent production you would expect for a blockbuster trade to say, hey, we are going to get a top 10 at minimum, honestly. A top 10 to top 5, maybe not one of the top 5 guys, but someone in that 5 to 10 range of edge rushers in football. So we're going to give up the pick. We're going to give this salary allocation to him, and he's going to come be a game wrecker next to one of the up-and-coming, still at the time, best interior pass rushers in football. And that vision never fully landed. And I say that as a really, silly kind of nick on the resume that did work in the playoffs. In the playoffs, that was the vision for what this unit was supposed to look like. That was, hey, here's Frank Clark. And so I think it can simultaneously be kind of a complicated legacy for where the regular seasons were kind of disappointing, and also really uncomplicated because you can reasonably say Frank Clark played, I don't like to play the wouldn't have won without him game because you start getting down to basically Patrick Mahomes and maybe Travis Kelce. But you can reasonably say Frank Clark played a huge role on 2 Super Bowl winning teams. Why would I have any vitriol towards that deal? And I think that would be a reasonable place to land.
Frank Clark will have a little bit of the Alex Smith time lapse as we get further and further away from his tenure with the Chiefs. It's more and more appreciated. Alex Smith at the time, when he played, it was not good enough. He's the problem. Captain check down. Find somebody that will push the ball down the field. System quarterback. You're not going to win. The reason you're not winning in the playoffs is because, you don't even give up a touchdown to the Steelers and you still lose. That's the quarterback. They get Patrick Mahomes, and you hear the stories of what Alex Smith did with Mahomes and Alex Smith sort of stabilizing the quarterback position that was just a motley crew of different players coming in and out after Trent Green to get to Alex Smith, and then on into handing the baton, the mantle to Patrick Mahomes. And the Alex Smith injury in Washington, all of that. He has become much more beloved around Kansas City, Alex Smith has, than he was while he played with the Chiefs.
Yep.
And some of that is because there are Super Bowls now with Patrick Mahomes. And finding out behind the scenes of what he did in practice and things like that. I wonder, and I do believe Frank Clark's legacy will be of that same sort of arc of frustrations at times while he was playing in the regular season. Appreciation, though, more for Frank Clark at the time because of Super Bowls and playoff performances. And as time passes, it'll be more of remembering the good times and the sacks and the there's blood in the water. That's not what they wanted. It's not what they wanted. Like that, Frank Clark will be remembered a lot, just as very fondly Alex Smith is being remembered. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. Pac-12 schools are going to dinner with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And people in the Pac-12 think that they are now getting married. We'll explain next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 800-522-4700. 21 plus, physically present in Kansas. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Opt-in and 10 plus leg required for 100% boost. Eligibility, wagering, and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/basketball terms. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort.
And all of those things you need to know because the NBA Finals continue, and we wonder who will be crowned NBA's best. We think it'll be the Denver Nuggets, but you never know. Miami has been one of those really, really tough-to-kill teams. Obviously, they're playing in the NBA Finals. You can join the NBA Finals action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers place a $5 bet during the NBA Finals and score $200 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, all customers take a shot at bigger payouts with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. Open the DraftKings Sportsbook app, opt in, place your stepped-up same-game parlay by combining 3 or more bets from any NBA Finals game. You can boost your NBA winnings with each leg you add up to 100%. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Sign up with code 810WHB. New customers can place a $5 bet. You score $200 in bonus bets instantly. Doesn't even matter the results of the game or of the bet. You just simply get the $200 instantly when you place that $5 bet. That's only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code 810WHB.
Hey, Kansas City, it's Justin Reed, safety for your Kansas City Chiefs. As you know, it was a great...
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll talk with Matt Derrick coming up at 11 o'clock. Allie Trost Martin at noon. Mick Schaefer after that as we roll along on this Friday edition of the show. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us to be a part of the show. 913-912-4810. The text line. We'll get into some of those as the show is over. Text says, what time is Jason releasing his lead pipe loser of the week picks today? I haven't given away nearly enough money on the NBA Finals yet. I told you yesterday, fade me. Fade me.
We need that lead pipe loser, though. We need to know what to fade.
Yeah.
What do you like?
You got to stay tuned to see the bets that are going to lose tonight. See,
if
that's
you
the
want
thing.
Jason's bets, you have to call him at his personal cell phone number, which
right.
is 913.
That's also wrong
That's
immediately.
good.
It's
That's
immediately
okay.
wrong.
I felt better about getting it wrong than I did getting it right.
You have to go with a different area code that isn't 816 either.
I haven't memorized a phone number since I was 11.
But here's the thing about the bets. Like, I haven't hit on a same game parlay yet because I haven't hit all 8 legs. I had mentioned yesterday that I had a fun, or maybe it was the day before, that I had like a fun one. And it was like, Jamal Murray to score 30 or more points, Jimmy Butler to score 30 or more points, Jokic to have a triple-double. Like, all of those are part of like the same game parlay. But I also had a couple in there that did not hit. So had I just individually bet those and you said, hey, Jason, what are you going with? Jamal Murray's going to drop 30 tonight. Jimmy Butler in a game, 1-1, he's going to drop 30 tonight. Jokic is going to have a triple-double. Like, bank on it.
If you could have just built the 2 30-point triple-double parlay,
Yeah,
I think you would have been in great shape.
Why didn't anybody else go with that?
He's like, I'll take that and the Michael Porter Jr. over.
Yeah.
No!
Here's my stone-cold lead pipe. Lock of the week, of the month, of the century.
Have you looked to see if the MPJ
Fat Jack,
lines
by the way. I love the intro to Fat Jack. That would be the Porter Jr. under.
Have you looked to see if those are significantly different?
Doesn't matter.
I wonder how far the
game
lines
one,
have moved.
game one, it was 14.5, or was it 15, something like that. Game 3 was 12.5.
I knew it was still double digits.
Yeah, which
I wonder if that's going to change.
yeah, I mean it should drop to 8.5. Honestly,
Now we're talking about 3 threes. He could make at least one.
he could,
You're already up to 3 points.
but he didn't in game 3. So, have you looked yet? Have you got there to see his?
I do see that Jokic, Murray, and Butler at 20 points each is boosted to plus 100.
Nice,
It's kinda
like that.
fun.
We'll go ahead and take that one because that boost on game 3 came through when they boosted Murray and Butler to plus 100 for both getting 20 points. So, hopefully you took advantage of that at DraftKings. So,
Player points. We're getting really close. I'm almost there.
yeah, Michael Porter Jr. is
10.5.
10.5. Yeah, I'll take the under. What's the
Even money, by the way. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Either way. Yeah. Well, not even
Minus-
money, but it's minus
So,
115.
minus
both ways.
115. Same,
Same.
same juice on
Yes.
either side.
That's right. 913-912-4810. I had mentioned when we went to break that the Pac-12 they're going to dinner,
Wine and dine, and it's July 9th.
and they are acting like they're getting married.
June 9th.
Yeah.
Did I say it's July?
It's June.
I got scared.
You're fine. The Pac-12 has agreed to a grant of rights deal, which is being viewed as they have now saved the conference. Those 4 corner schools, Colorado, Arizona, Utah, Arizona State. Do they head to the Big 12? Big 12 wants to get to 16, so they've already added schools. We know that the 4 schools coming in, and they want to add some more schools. Colorado's had talks that were substantive with the Big 12 and Brett Yormark. Brett Yormark and Big 12 officials were in Memphis the other day doing a site visit for potential expansion for, the Memphis Tigers and, football and basketball and whatever. But the grant of rights deal that came down yesterday or late Wednesday, that's being viewed as the Pac-12 is now safe. The Big 12, you can go pound sand. All right, go play in traffic, Big 12, because you're not coming in here and getting any Pac-12 schools. I believe we are witnessing the Pac-12 going through what the Big 12 went through in 2010, 11, when Colorado and Nebraska left for the Pac-12 and the Big 10 respectively, and all of these meetings were taking place, and everybody was committing in a room. No, we're good. We're committing in here. We are solid. Everybody here, to the face of others, we are about keeping this Big 12 intact with these 10 schools, even with Nebraska and Colorado leaving. The grant of rights, when you look at the details of it, they have verbally agreed to the grant of rights when / if the TV contract deal is done. When and if. Also, it would have to be satisfactory to the remaining Pac-12 schools for them to then actually sign their name and their school to a grant of rights to give up those TV rights if they were to leave a conference. The Pac-12 has agreed to go to dinner with each other, but they're still discussing, and the agreement is contingent on everybody agreeing what restaurant to go to. Guys, we're all going to go to dinner together. Great, we're all committed. Now let's figure out what restaurant we're going to go to, but we all have to agree on the restaurant we're all going to, and we have to be happy about that, and we won't view a better deal at a better restaurant with another group of people. We're going to stay here, and I promise we're going to dinner with you if we can come to an agreement that it is in the best interest for me to go to said restaurant. And they are publicly, those in the media that are pushing out the talking points of the Pac-12, publicly presenting it as, we have just signed a marriage license. We are now together forever. And when you still have teams, Colorado, saying, we are committed to the Pac-12, but we will do what's in the best interest of Colorado, that's not a we are committed. That is a Chris Rock, a man is only as committed as his options. Whether that being true or not. That's the funny bit that Chris Rock does. These schools are as committed as their options monetarily in the conference they are in. Clemson and Florida State are committed to the ACC because monetarily it would be destructive for them to leave and give up their grant of rights. If they didn't have a grant of rights, they'd be gone. They ain't in the ACC because they love their neighbors. They're in the ACC because they're locked into a contract and they can't leave and give up all the money. This is the Big 12 meetings that were going on, Josh, when everybody was singing Kumbaya, and then behind the scenes and then publicly you had then Oklahoma at the time going, well, we're going to do what's best for Oklahoma. And then that then sent a fissure through the foundation of a meeting that just took place when everybody agreed we're all on the same page. And then Joe Castiglione goes, yeah, we're all in it, but we're still going to do what's best for Oklahoma. And as the timeline of everything that took place, and you hear, like, when that happened, that was really A&M and Missouri going, all right, bleep this. We just sat down and everybody was in agreement that we're doing what's best for the Big 12. And then he says, we're still going to do what's best for Oklahoma. All right, done. We're done with this. And Oklahoma does that. Colorado does that. It's that eerie feeling. And good luck to the Pac-12 if they get San Diego State and save their conference.
College realignment is a lot easier when you start from a baseline of assuming that everyone is lying to protect their own best self-interests.
That's right.
Like, that's just the baseline we should all start with. If Saudi Arabia wants to buy Colorado, there's a chance that will happen. Like, we are witnessing this at every level of sport, all throughout, but especially in college football, the engine driven by college football. You are always going to find these teams that are saying, hey, yes, we are committed to our union here in this conference because, boy, it's scary to be alone. Unless we get a better table at a better restaurant, and then we will be ordering off that menu. That is the default at this point. It's been that way for a while. I think now and maybe this is just everyone sort of seeing the lights come on over the course of the last decade. There are very, very, very few shadows to left to hide in at this point. These teams are all going to follow the money and job security and what they view as those things continuing for their school, whatever that means. The fact that right now the Big 12 seems like relatively stable, like it's got its feet on the ground, that is a fascinating and nice little development for where we're at this point. We're talking about the Pac-12. Are they going to put their football games on the CW? I mean, that's a bleak thing to say out loud.
ESPN ejected. Like, they are going through negotiations, and ESPN is like, yeah, we're not involved. We're out. Like, what's the network deal you're getting when you're not bidding ESPN against other competitors and networks?
And you want to go ahead and open up your whole conference to streaming or Apple or wherever, whatever the streaming side that wants to hop in is. That's fine, and I think the MLS's deal is going to end up making a lot of sense because we are the home for soccer, really, is what we're trying to, certainly American soccer.
And the Pac-12 can't bring in Messi.
That's also very much true. But they can't bring in Messi, and also it's not that one of these places is going to be your home for college football. Mm-hmm. It might be your home for your Pac-12 team, but now you're going to individual teams within one conference as opposed to this idea of we're just going to have everything here under this umbrella. I don't think college football is too big and too fragmented for that. So I don't know what the TV solution is going to be, but as you've already laid out, everyone's keeping their options open until they feel good about their TV deal.
And as we go to break, if you're a team in the Pac-12 and you say, our commissioner decided to hold off in negotiating our deal with ESPN, and the Big 12 jumped in front of us and got a deal done, and now ESPN isn't interested in doing a deal with us, our commissioner got beat to the punch with that, thinking waiting would be the best move. Mm. Also, the Big 12 is expanding into Mexico and having games played in Mexico every year to now have something called Big 12 Mexico to increase their revenue, sales, tickets, arenas, footprint, TV deals, ESPN Deportes. That commissioner is thinking that way. Your commissioner was like, now let's sit back and let everything come to us. Oh, wait, now we're stuck holding the bag. That's also your choice of what conference to join. We'll take a timeout. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
We've mentioned a few times that I was gone for a little while, a really inconvenient wedding and honeymoon and all of that. I'm sorry. I'm back now. And one of the best parts about being back is all those places overseas, I had a great time, but not a single one of them had a Green Light dispensary. They've got 4 KC area locations right here in the city, including their newest one on 135th and State Line. The other ones on Bannister, in Independence, and Harrisonville. They've been voted Missouri's best dispensary numerous times by the people of Missouri, and they always have great inventory and a huge variety. The most important thing to me early on and still to this day from Greenlight is the care and the quality that their knowledgeable bud tenders bring to the experience. If you're wondering, hey, I'm not sure if I'm ready to go check out a dispensary or figure out what might be right for me, that's what the bud tenders at Greenlight are there to do. Ask your silliest questions. They will not make you feel silly for asking them. Everyone's got to start somewhere, and those are the experts that can really take all of your concerns and all of your questions and fine-tune your experience for you. So you can order online if you know what you want and pick up through a drive-thru or the grab-and-go window. If you know what you're ordering online, it is super easy, incredibly convenient. Or again, go inside, browse in person, ask the bud tenders what's right for you. They got extended hours on the weekend, and all that information is available at greenlightdispensary.com.
At Rye Restaurants, we celebrate Midwestern recipes tradition.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll talk with Matt Derrick coming up at the top of the 11 o'clock hour. You know, Chad Corey opens doors around here for people. That's what he does. Many people may not know that, or care, actually. Chad Corey actually got was able to get me the internship here at Sports Radio 810 back in the year 2000. Because we happen to be fraternity brothers at Northwest Missouri State.
I don't think I ever knew that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we were fraternity brothers at Northwest Missouri State. I had come home from doing play-by-play of Northwest football game on homecoming. And, you know, as a pledge, we were, required to go and get in conversations with alumni. And the first conversation I walk up to, Chad Corey's there. I don't know his name. And he's like, hey, Chad Corey. I'm like, man, how do I know that name? And he's like, well, I'm alumni here. I'm like, I don't know that dude's name over there. How am I going to know alumni's name? That's for sure. I've been a part of this for all of 20 minutes here. I'm like, Chad Corey? Man. And he's like, well, I work at 810. I'm like, yes, I know. Keatsman makes fun of you all the time.
There it is.
And he's like, oh, you listen? I'm like, yeah, it's the only job I want. It's what I'm doing in radio in college is to work at 810. And he's like, oh, well, I don't know if this is true, but I love the sort of trying to maybe present something as more important than maybe it is. He goes, well, Lebo owes me a favor.
Oh, I love that.
So,
that's a power move.
Might be able to get you an internship if you want. I'm like, no kidding. You better not be fooling. Don't be jerking my chain.
This actually opens up a really concerning reality because the idea that Lebo keeps track of who he owes favors to, or more importantly, who owes him favors, that's the most debt I'm in my life, is my favorite debt to Lebo.
And then I annoyed the bleep out of Todd Lebo because that internship wasn't until the next summer. This is homecoming of fall. And I believe some emails that I got from Todd, essentially part of that was, yes, again, we have, this internship. We will reach out when we get closer to that. Okay, you better not be fooling, though. Better not be joshing me. But I bring that up because Nolan and Harrison are here. Apparently, they live in the same neighborhood with Chad Corey, and they're big fans of sports, and they wanted to come by and see the radio station, and they took a picture with Josh and me for some reason. Not sure.
We begged them.
That's right. Please. So he's just opening up doors for everybody. So future sports radio hosts Nolan and Harrison hanging out here, walking around.
Oh, yeah. How long do you think we have till I take our jobs?
10 minutes or so.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, I'm going to go get a box.
Yep. Matt Derrick will hang out with Nolan and Harrison coming up in the next segment. That was cool meeting them. They were very nice.
I did ask them if they know how to push buttons.
Yeah.
Say, just my parents. So, yes, we will talk some Chiefs football.
Hey, that new hire back there looks suspiciously like two little kids stacked up on each other wearing a trench coat. That's weird.
I love the visual now.
Yeah. Just smacking the buttons.
That's how they drove here.
Yeah.
One had the pedals, one had the steering. Slow down! Stop! Acceleration! Go!
Men, summer is here. It's a time to vacation, get outside, and enjoy life with the one you love. But if you have erectile dysfunction, you know how it makes you feel.
All right, we continue on this Friday edition of The Zone. We will talk with Ali Trost-Martin coming up an hour from now, get her thoughts on sporting, the current, and Lionel Messi heading to Miami and the MLS. We'll talk with her about all of those things and maybe even more, because typically the Ali Trost-Martin conversations can evolve, depending on which way you look at it, into different forms. So we'll do that coming up at noon. Right now, hanging out with Matt Derrick, Chiefs Digest, joining us here in the Zone on this Friday. Matt, what's up, sir? How are you?
I am well, and you know that things always devolve when I'm here.
That's which is perfectly fine.
Sometimes they de-evolve when I'm here.
Yes, that's true. And I love that you got the beard starting. You couldn't play for the Yankees, but you know, it's starting to look good.
It's really powerful.
Like it. Are you just not wanting to shave, or are you letting it grow in?
Well, after I had my surgery, I didn't shave, because I was, having surgery and everything. And so, just don't care about your appearance for about a week.
Yeah.
And then I just kept it going because it was like, hey, I've got nowhere to go or anything to do. So, and Josh was cheering me on, trying to.
That's so much kinder than bullying, which is what I felt like.
Well, there was some
times.
bullying involved in trying to get me to grow it out. And then it got really hot and itchy and just.
I can't get past the itchy stage.
That went away. And then, a few days ago, it was just like, I'm too lazy to shave. And
These aren't mandatory. These are organized activities.
We'll see how long this goes. It might.
Is this phase 3 of your beard?
This is
phase 1?
I think training camp.
This is phase 2.
Training camp, if you've got to, really streamline everything, I think that would be reasonable.
Training camp is going to be way too long and way too hot.
I was going to say, there's no way you're going to be able to do that. See, it's not like when Drake has his beard, the winter beard. Major League Baseball season is over. He doesn't shave until pitchers and catchers report.
It's a great philosophy.
Having the beard during the summer would be the exact opposite of the logic of
I don't
that.
see how you could have a beard in St. Joe in July, in August.
Yeah, Josh?
I don't know. I'm not sure where I'm going to be in terms of my facial follicles when St. Joe's on the table.
You still seem like you have wedding hair. I mean, that is...
I'm thinking about doing something drastic. I've about had it with just sort of all of the... being this beautiful, this long, this often is a real weight on the psyche.
Even your forehead, has a shine to it. Like there's
Wait a minute. Are you with child? You are glowing.
I'm glowing.
You are glowing.
A couple of weeks abroad, just wandering around in the Spanish streets.
Should have sent you to Europe too.
Bring the color out a little bit. Yeah.
Well, good for you, man.
We actually traded me and Messi. So
you do look a little bronze, but I thought maybe it was a bronzer you were applying.
It's actually just in honor of the third Mahomes.
Damn it! I was going to go there. It's actually he's just been hanging out with baby Mahomes.
I'm just
with baby Patrick.
Just to put layups for you guys. These are just behind the back passes that you guys are just stuffing home.
Well, I appreciate it. It's you know what? You actually pass the ball. Typically I'm not doing that on the court or off the court or anywhere else. But last time we talked, last Friday, I was unaware because I don't pay much attention to Bears. But on Sunday, in Sunday Sound Off,
I was so happy to see this.
Finding out that it is Fat Bear Week, Fat Bear Season month.
Really season.
Okay.
Yeah, Fat Bear Week is in October.
Okay, so Fat Bear Season opened
It's starting, yes.
When is it starting? Has it already started, or is it going to start? What are we looking at? Are they waking from their slumber right now?
They had kind of a soft launch Thursday night because that was the first kind of introductory chat online. And I don't know if they've set the date for the cams to go up. Usually it's like mid-June. So the cameras in Katmai National Park go up. And because right now the bears that live in Katmai National Park, and there's 1,000 some odd bears, they start coming out of hibernation. They go down to Brooks Falls and the Naknek River, I think it is, that goes through there and goes in the Bay of Alaska and we're into the Pacific Ocean, and all the salmon and everything come through. Well, the bears come down and they just eat a ton of salmon. And you get to watch them on the cams and everything, and it's nature at its finest.
Do you have a rooting interest on who you're got the salmon? Take that, punk.
Everybody's got their favorite bears. Otis is like a universally favorite bear because he's an old guy. He's getting up there, so every year it's like, hey, when's Otis showing up? Because you hate to be the year that Otis doesn't come out of hibernation. But you got some great storylines.
Very long hibernation for Otis.
Talk about the other night, Grazer, Bear 128, She's legendary because she is the fiercest. I mean, all the bears have numbers because the researchers have tagged them with numbers and everything.
Yeah, so it's like a sports team.
You have to be spotted You have to be spotted by them like for 3 straight years, I think it is, before they give you a number. And so Grazer's 128, but then some get nicknames. You know, she's Grazer. I don't remember why she's Grazer, but. I think it had something to do with like something that like got grazed on her head or something. I can't remember what it was.
Just thought maybe she was grazing on grass.
Bear 747, who was one of the biggest.
I was
going to
say 747. Is that after an airplane or something?
Bear Force One.
That's my favorite nickname anywhere in Fat Bear season.
Yeah,
Bear Force One is my favorite thing in the world.
And he's the defending Fat Bear champion. So last year I think he was maybe 1,600 pounds.
Oh, you win by how big you get?
So well, you get nominated for Fat Bear Week and for the bracket. There's a bracket.
I'm looking at the bracket right now for last year.
And so you get nominated for the bracket, and that's just choosing like who got the fattest during the year.
Yeah.
Otis a couple of years ago won, and it wasn't that he was the biggest, fattest bear, but what happened was that he didn't show up until like July 28th or something, and then he was just like emaciated. I mean, he was just like the skinniest looking bear. It looked like the wind was going to blow him over, and then he packed on the salmon like you wouldn't believe. So everybody was like, "Give it." And Otis, I think, is like a 3 or 4 time champion. So he's a goat. He's a goat, in addition to being a bear. But going back to Grazer more time.
He's the goat of bears. This starts to get confusing.
Grazer, one more time. She's the fiercest mama bear out there.
Okay.
She's got these 2 girls right now. The Grazerettes is what they call them.
Okay.
Come on.
Yeah. Josh loving this. And, I mean, they last year they were just the bullies at the falls. I mean, when the Grazerettes were coming down, it's like everybody partied because Grazer's a big girl herself. Her cubs were both 2 years old, and 2 years is like usually the max. I mean, that's most moms. Some moms only keep their cubs for 1 year, and then some will kick them out after year 2 and everything.
Kick them out. Go get a job.
Exactly.
Like an Andy Reid offense.
And almost no mama bear keeps her cubs 3 years. Well, she just came out of hibernation with the cubs.
Wow.
And they're still hanging out. So it's like, are they going to stay the season with her? I mean, we'll see.
Are we going to get to witness the separation at some point?
Exactly. I mean, they have seen the separation on the cams before.
Or is she building a dynasty?
Because when that happens, usually it's because when they get separated, it's like mom's like, okay, it's time for you to go.
Right.
And then she'll like chase him and bite him and attack him and everything. I mean, not like fiercely, but
Have you seen rent prices on caves? Lots of children are moving home.
Exactly. I mean, maybe that's why. And this is
Do they Airbnb it out for other bears?
It's just Air Bear and Bear.
Bear and Bear just to go and...
Bear.
It's Airbnb and B.
Airbnb.
Ooh, Bear B&B is right there.
There you go, Bear B&B.
Bear B&B.
We got there.
We got Bear.
This is another great storyline to watch because last year there's 2 bears, 909 and 910. They are sisters. And normally family units don't stick together. I mean, everything. I mean, they don't. I mean, you're a bear, and even if you were a cub, you had a sister or anything like that, like the Grazerettes.
It is an epidemic of this country.
Usually, you just go your own separate way. You get your own place. You get your own hive. Hibernation.
So you're not allowed to then stay there with the others if you're.
Right. Usually, usually that's what the parents do. The mama does, and so she'll like chase them off, and the cubs will sometimes go to a different part of the park, and set up their own territory, so they're away from mom and everything. Well, 909 and 910 still fish the falls and everything, and I think it was 909 had a 1-year-old last year. 910 had a fresh cub. And about midway through the season, they kind of met up and everything. And they started hanging out together.
Whoa.
And then they started babysitting each other's cubs.
No way.
So, like, one would go fish, and one would watch both of the cubs, and they would switch off and everything. And if some other bears came along and started giving them some business and saying, hey, we want your fish. Oh, and there's fish theft all the time.
It's just called fishing, but it's PHIS.
Exactly. So, last year they started hanging out together as a family. That never happens. The researchers have never seen it before. So they're fascinated in it. And once again, came out of hibernation this year, still hanging out together.
Wow.
So, see.
Didn't let the offseason change them
storylines for this. I mean, forget the Michael Jordan documentary.
Yeah.
I mean, this is.
It's fascinating is what it is.
Yeah.
Nature is really fascinating. And I did not know that they would just chase their cubs away. Like that seems really extreme and mean.
Heartbreaking stuff.
Like what?
Well, last year one of the bigger bears. I'm trying to remember which one it was. It was 856. 856 is kind of a bully. He's but he's like an alpha. He's like one of the biggest bears, and he kind of pushes himself around. 39, bear 39
is a beta bear.
She had 4 cubs, and taking care of 4 cubs is crazy. But on top of that, 39, she's a falls fisher. That's where she does her best work.
Sounds like 39 should use some protection.
Well, it was all one.
One litter.
One litter. Yeah. So but she fishes the falls. I mean, all the bears fish different places, and they fish where they're comfortable. So she's going to go fish where she's comfortable. So she was fishing the falls. Well, 856 didn't really like that, and so he chased her, and don't really know, but after that, she only had 3 cubs.
No.
Yeah. And so, on the cams, you could see her, she was, crying out, looking for the 3rd cub because she took the other cubs and hid them and protected them and everything.
So nobody then ganged up on 856?
No.
Some community there.
But no, there's other. I mean, there's plenty of great stories. I mean, one of the up and coming bears.
Yeah, right.
Who's expected to be one of, and I know you want to talk about bears for the entire hour.
We did months in the draft. This is basically that.
I'm trying to remember. I think it's 5 something or other, maybe 510, 502. I can't remember. He was abandoned by his mom, and when he was like, I can't remember if he was a cub or a yearling. But it was pretty early. But he was also sick. He had like an injured leg, and he couldn't keep up with mom and everything like that. And I think she may have had another cub too. So she did the nature thing. She takes care of the healthy cub, and the unhealthy cub is just like, we'll just leave you go do your thing. Well, Holly, who had a cub at the time, and Holly is like, she's a beautiful bear. She's like a blonde bear, stands out strikingly against all the other brown bears because she's just platinum blonde.
Champion in 2019.
The soccer mom?
Exactly. A 2019 fat bear champion. I mean, she can pack on the salmon too. She adopted that cub. Wow. That was hurt.
Traded a 3rd round pick to the Giants.
Exactly. And so then she took care of that cub along with her cub. And now that cub that she adopted, I mean, like I said, I think that cub's like maybe 5 or 6 years old. I mean, and they think that, hey, when he's a full-grown adult, like 8 to 10, he's going to be one of the, bigger bears on Brooks Falls and might be dominant bear.
So it's like an investment then.
Yeah. Exactly.
Holly's a great scout, a great bear scout.
Oh, yeah, she's a
Dominican. It's a Dominican signing as a young 16-year-old that will eventually grow
recruiter,
into Ellie de la Cruz.
Great coaching. I mean, she's probably the Andy Reid of bears.
Packing on the salmon.
And can pack on the salmon too. I bet Andy Reid has never pushed away a salmon.
Text line comes in and says, what the hell is going on? Another text says, I absolutely hate myself for thoroughly enjoying this content right now.
Nothing to be ashamed of here.
Nancy said, it was 93 because 39 had 2 cubs, but that has 4 cubs.
93, 39.
But with 39 that we lost.
Confusing. Yeah. I just love that of all the texts that have come in, those were back to back. It's just perfect.
Yeah. Think about how I felt when all this happened during the pandemic. Because this is what we got involved with during the pandemic. What else are you going to watch? Marbles or bears?
Yeah.
My personal text line says, I'm loving the bear stories. Does chasing and biting work for human children over 21 still living at home? I haven't tried that yet.
Worth a shot. Just, the other thing is don't give them any to your salmon.
Text says...
Make them go get their own salmon.
Text says, can we have fat bears on Reddit?
Wow. This is what we need. All right.
Text says, can you talk about this during the Royals segment instead?
Yes.
Another text says, are you guys going to actually discuss the Chiefs today? Well, we're talking about the Chiefs in a way. We're discussing the Bears.
We need to get Bears
they face off against the Bears this year at home. So,
my game should have been in Germany.
We're doing those
international Bears.
That's right. Visiting with Matt Derrick. Chiefs Digest, Bear Digest. Joining us to talk about all things NFC North and the Chiefs. Discussing the Bears, discussing also the National League Central and the Cubs. So
there you go.
Everything Chicago
UCLA.
Is what we're talking about.
Can
Bears.
We do that too?
Wait a minute. Chicago's teams are the Bears and the Cubs. Did they do that on purpose? Yeah, I guess I'm stupid to not know that they probably did that on purpose.
Wait.
Ooh, do Bears wear white socks?
always like it that whenever you're like watching a movie or reading a book that's not licensed and it's like a sports book, and the Chicago team is always the Bruins, too. So
Are the Bears at this place protected by Black Hawks?
Wait till you find out about the Jets, Mets, and Nets.
No, don't care.
Just glad you said Black Hawks correctly.
Me too.
Yeah. That's Matt Derrick, Chiefs Digest. So let's talk about the Chiefs.
Yes.
We should probably take a break.
No. We're just getting started here.
Exactly.
We're getting rolling here. This is Fat Chiefs week going on. So the Chiefs have OTAs. And
next
week is the mandatory
technically
minicamp.
next week is the mandatory
minicamp with OTAs going on this week and all of those things. Let's play. You know what? Let's have some fun with Blaine Gabbert. Blaine Gabbert was asked, what does Bear 938 and Bear 742 have in common as they, sort of...
Kind of 747 going to be Patrick Mahomes, and
and whatever the other one be.
32 chunk could be Tom Brady.
Tom
there
Brady.
We go.
Blaine Gabbert weighing in on what he sees in the commonalities between those two great quarterbacks.
They're maniacal perfectionists. And I mean that in the most endearing way possible. They're the two best, in my opinion, to ever play the game. To see the similarities, kind of how they operate in the meeting room, on the practice field. Now they're completely different players, as we all know, but the way they approach the game on and off the football field is the exact same way, and you can see why they both had such sustained success early on and then throughout their careers.
How do you see that in Pat?
Just his attention to detail. He's a master of the system. He's been in it now, I think, going on 7 years. He still approaches it like it's day one, still taking notes the same way as he did as a rookie, as all quarterbacks do. You need to kind of refresh every single year, and there's always something that he wants to work on, always something to improve on, always something to get better at.
Do you prefer maniacal perfectionist or competitive prick?
I think both are accurate.
I mean, I can't wait for the next description for somebody about Patrick Mahomes that we've heard: competitive prick and maniacal perfectionist. Those are great descriptions.
Great answer.
Of who he can. If you didn't know anything about Patrick Mahomes and somebody said he's a competitive prick and a maniacal perfectionist, like, you'd have a pretty decent idea of what he may be able to accomplish on the field if you said he's gifted with immense talent. Like, every gift of what a quarterback could want, and he's got that which you can't teach and is not something that you can sort of measure by arm strength or accuracy or ability to escape the pocket.
Yeah, I mean, as I heard him say it and everything, I was like, okay, Blaine gets it clearly.
Yeah.
He's figured out Mahomes already. He knows it. But I thought it was a perfect description. I mean, it absolutely is. And, I mean, we've seen it with Brady all these years, but, I mean, Mahomes is exactly the same way. And we'll see what somebody else comes up with next as the description for Mahomes. But I thought it was just dead on perfect, and you're right. I mean, it does. If you don't know anything about Patrick Mahomes, those two phrases tell you pretty much everything you need to know.
It's the Chiefs continue to dip into the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that played with Tom Brady, Justin Watson last year. Ooh, you played with Tom Brady, you played with Patrick Mahomes. What are the similarities and the things you see? Donovan Smith. Hey, you played with Tom Brady, you played with Patrick Mahomes. What do you see? Like, what do you see? Have you seen some of those throws in practice of the Patrick Mahomes and then, Brady and, different systems, and now Blaine Gabbert? You've played with Tom Brady, you've been around Patrick Mahomes. What's it like? Like, we've had a number of different people we can ask about the comparisons between Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. And all of them have weighed in, and it's not like, well, you're going to hear somebody have a disparaging remark about Brady or about Patrick Mahomes, but it is fascinating that it's been back-to-back seasons and three different players on the offensive side that have played with Tom Brady to have that comparison of this guy who is viewed as the GOAT versus this guy who you're now playing with that is maybe the most talented player to ever play the position, that has the start to his young career that has just been otherworldly, and could ultimately be the greatest of all time in decorated success while also ability. Hey, what do you think of these two that do it differently?
Yeah.
And that's what's fascinating is that they do it differently, but apparently like the approach and the way of going about preparing is not necessarily different. It's just when they get on the field, they accomplish and they execute in different ways to score points.
And that's why, I mean, I'm fascinated in the opportunity that Blaine Gabbert has here because, one, how many quarterbacks are going to get the opportunity to play with both these guys? I mean, right now, I guess one has done it. But he's also getting them at the right times. I mean, yeah, it was the end of the road for Tom Brady, but maybe that's the best time to get Tom Brady. And now he's coming to Patrick when Patrick is up and running. And for anybody else who comes in, I mean, offensively, yeah, I mean, you can talk about it being a lineman or a receiver or a running back or somebody else. Being in that quarterback room is something else. And that's why, to me, it's just such a unique perspective because being able to be in the room with those guys when they're breaking down film and the thought process, I mean, and everything, the perspectives that Blaine's going to have on both these guys after, how many ever years he's in Kansas City, it's going to be a unique perspective that nobody else is going to be able to share.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue hanging out with Matt Derrick. We'll get into more about the Chicago Bears and also the Kansas City Chiefs. Frank Clark is a Bronco. We'll talk about some other things on the defense. Justin Reed had an interesting comment about when he became comfortable in the defense last year, which was pretty fascinating looking back at that and sort of having the full picture now. We'll talk about those things with Matt Derrick. And also, we discussed yesterday about Donovan Smith and joining the Chiefs and from the offensive line and the interior that he played with last year at left guard and now what it could be this year. And we see Pro Football Focus's rankings of the center position and the guard position that's out and really looking at the best interior offensive line units based on some of those rankings. We'll do that and get into that conversation with Matt Derrick as well. More Zone coming up next.
Take the show with you by listening live on
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We're hanging out with Matt Derrick coming up at noon. We'll talk with Ali Trost-Martin. Some sporting, some current, some messy conversation, which is also what we had at the first part of this conversation with Matt Derrick, depending on which way you view it. Frank Clark, the tenure is over with the Kansas City Chiefs, and he is heading west to play with the Denver Broncos. How much did you think there was a chance of them bringing Frank Clark back, and then your reaction to the news yesterday that he is signing with the Denver Broncos, 1 year, $5.5 million, with a chance to make $7.5 million with incentives?
Yeah, I thought all along and said all along. I mean, I thought there was a decent chance, especially the longer that it went on, because you would normally think that the longer you go into free agency, the price typically comes down.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, Chiefs and Brett Veach said from the very beginning, I mean, wasn't necessarily the end. I mean, Chiefs, that was kind of all along, was like, hey, yeah, we'd consider bringing back Frank Clark at some point. Clearly, his teammates wanted him back because there was a little bit of a semi-organized campaign to try and get Frank back in KC. So a little surprised by that. The other part that just surprised me is I just didn't think he would get that much.
Yeah, that's the biggest surprise.
Don't begrudge him at all, because if you're able to get 5.5 guaranteed and a reasonable chance to make 6.5 and maybe 7.5, that's a great deal for Frank Clark. So you can't turn that down. I mean, and that was not going to be the deal in Kansas City. I mean, the Chiefs, if they wanted to bring back Frank Clark, I mean, if they wanted to bring him back at that money, I mean, they could have already. I mean, that would have been a done deal anyway. So I think it's a pretty good indication that the price point at which the Chiefs were comfortable bringing back Frank was not that price point.
And I wonder if that's why Chris Jones stopped tweeting about it. Because, again, I've joked a couple of times that, Chris Jones said, I'm going to tweet every day until he's back, and that lasted 4 days. It might have been to where you start to get an idea if you're Frank Clark of, look, this is what the Chiefs are offering me. This is what my agent's saying, that, already discussions with other teams of what I can get. It ain't going to work, Chris. I mean, I appreciate it, but, it's...
And no offense to Chris, but there's a reason why.
Yeah, that's right,
the Chiefs couldn't even make an offer to Frank Clark.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they don't have any cap space, and the reason they don't have any cap space is that your extension's not done yet.
Yeah, and they don't have any cap space, even though it says like they've got $1 million of cap space, but they have not signed Rashee Rice yet. He's the only rookie that is yet to sign with the Chiefs. They've signed every other draft pick but Rice, which, as a quick aside, is that a concern, a worry? Like, years past before the rookie wage scale or whatever, then it would have been, okay, what's going on? There's not much you can negotiate except for, like, when you get your cash, how much is up front, what parts of the contract are guaranteed. He's still showing up to everything. It's not a holdout.
The only other thing you really can get in there sometimes are just offsets as far as, what you're going to sacrifice if you get cut later and what the team can kind of recoup back. So, yeah, I mean, these don't typically go on that long. Like you said, sometimes just a matter of when the money gets there and everything. Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are close enough on the cap right now that if this deal were structured in a way, they might not be able to get it under.
That's the other thing, too, that I wonder, like, how accurate are some of the numbers? And if they're that accurate, like, his cap hit is going to be higher than what they have remaining, according to, like, what the expected cap hit would be versus what I would still call it Spotrac and over the cap unofficial of what their specific number is on June 9th at 11:30.
Yeah, and remember too, I mean, I think and I haven't looked at the NFLPA number for a couple of days. I know it was at 1.2, and I don't think that anything else has hit it since then. I know Albert Breer had off another list that supposedly comes from the NFL that had him even lower than that, like maybe 300 some odd thousand and change. But then remember, I mean, this time of year, it's only the top 51 contracts. So Rashee Rice is going to replace
That's a good point.
Just the minimum salary $51 million contract. So you're not increasing it a full, if his cap hit is going to be $750, it's not the whole $750 that
right.
hits.
So you would increase it by like $400,000.
Yeah, which
so then they would have
the one cap space. They might not have enough room.
Right, and according to like over the cap and Spotrac, they would have enough room. That's a good point. Yeah, so you're replacing the top 51 there. Also, as I just quickly glance through, there are no second rounders signed yet in front of Rashee Rice,
and that's another factor.
So the first rounders have almost all been signed except like the top 10.
And that's weird. I mean, I haven't heard the hold up about what it is, but that
the
is
second rounders are just
deal.
like nothing across the board. There's a few that have signed, but like Mingo and Reed have not signed their. Those are the two wide receivers in front of Rice. They haven't signed their deal yet.
Yeah, that's weird.
And behind Rice, a lot of contracts have been done. So it is kind of odd. Like I don't know if there's a waiting by his agent and maybe even the Chiefs of like, hey, once these guys start to fill in, because FAU was a little bit later on with first-round picks. Those first-round picks were filling in ahead of FAU before his contract was done. And now it's just really odd to see all of the different blanks next to the second-round picks in what their contracts were that they signed and agreed to. So.
Second-round contracts are probably, to a degree, the trickiest because, first-round picks really end up getting slotted. So once they start falling in, it's pretty easy. And then once you get really the third and fourth round, there's almost no negotiation. It's just you almost take it or leave it. That's what it is because there's a slotted amount that you're going to pay. The teams can only pay so much anyway, so you kind of take what you get. Second round is a little bit more interesting negotiation. So
there are 3 second-round picks that have signed their contract.
That's really weird.
Derek Hall with Seattle, defensive end from Auburn. Matthew Bergeron, tackle from Syracuse with the Falcons. And B.J. Ojulari of LSU with the Arizona Cardinals. That's 3, and you're talking about Rashee Rice was pick 23 of the second round. So, and only 3 of those guys in front of him. The top 5 draft picks have not signed a contract yet, but pick 23 to 31 have all agreed. And again, once those started filling in, then FAU. So it's an interesting point of what they have left on their salary cap, and then also nobody signed in the second round. It's just it's kind of odd.
The public salary cap report on the NFLPA's website here has the Chiefs at 1.2 in change, second least in football. And like some of the other sites have had even less than that, but that's the NFLPA one that I just found.
Yeah, so if they add $400,000 to the cap, then you're talking about still having a surplus of $800,000 according to that if they get this contract signed. But yeah, it is kind of weird that all of those, and only 3 of the second rounders in front of Rashee Rice, because behind Rashee Rice is Tyreek Stevenson, hasn't signed yet, but then pick 57 through 63 have all signed their contracts. So, and in fact, 57 through 75 have all signed their contracts. So again, but it's not the same that it used to be in 2010 before the rookie wage scale came in, because then it would be, what's going on? Why has he not signed yet? And is there going to be an issue with this guy who's going to be relied upon to come in and play? And they've got every other draft pick signed, but this guy, it would be a much bigger conversation than it is sort of a sidebar, sort of a note. That
used to be such fun when the GM and the agent would start dropping F-bombs at each other.
Yeah, where's the John Tate? Where's Todd Lebo showing up with just a phone in the background and going live? Come on. Where's that at? What's the legacy of Frank Clark in this town?
I think he's going to be remembered fairly fondly. It does seem like there's some division. In fact, and I think certainly going to Denver will probably affect it a little bit because I've seen it all across the board. The response that I've heard from fans, someone's like, hey, good for Frank. Great for him. Great deal. Someone's like, not the Broncos. Boo. But to me, I think a fair assessment of Frank Clark is that you signed him to get you over the hump, to get you a Super Bowl. And he certainly, you don't win 54 without him. Do you win 57 without him? Maybe. But it's on his resume. Mm-hmm. So you signed Frank Clark to win a Super Bowl. You won 2. So I don't know how you can't put that down in any other as a very, very unqualified success. There's no asterisk next to it to me. That's a good deal. You got 2 Super Bowls out of it.
I think it's it's somewhat of a I guess in a way complicated legacy for Frank Clark.
It is.
He's got the 2 Super Bowls. He's playoff Frank. Clark the Shark, which will always be remembered fondly, but he was also a guy during the regular season, and the money he was making was typically defensively the first person people complained about. Get rid of Frank Clark. You got to why is he still on this team? Get him out. Why is he playing? Why is he starting? He's making way too much money. This guy's cap hit is $26 million in 2021. This guy is cap hit of that much for the production you're getting. What a mistake. Did they make a mistake with that contract, with that trade? Yeah, they got a Super Bowl, but they're paying for it now with this deal. And yet the further removed it's 2 Super Bowls, playoff Frank Clark, because he started getting sacks again in the playoffs this last year. That, I compared it a little bit to Alex Smith, that in the time, in the moment, there were complaints and frustrations with Alex Smith. And then since he's been gone, and you hear stories of mentoring Patrick Mahomes, being an ultimate professional, great dude, and you've got a couple Super Bowls with Patrick Mahomes and this success, you think of Alex Smith a little more fondly as stabilizing the quarterback position in a town that from Trent Green to Alex Smith was just a who in the heck is going to be there that can do anything besides embarrass yourself out there on the field. He did that and then handed the baton over to Patrick Mahomes. So Alex Smith, as time passes, is viewed much more fondly than his time when he was currently on the Chiefs.
And I think, I made it pretty clear. I think Brett Veach has done a great job as a general manager. I think he's incredibly underrated. I think when he signed Frank Clark, I would quibble with one mistake that I think he made. And I think that was probably a young GM making the mistake, which is that I think he oversold it. Because, my takeaway from the Frank Clark press conference when they signed him was Brett Veach coming in there and saying, we view this guy as an elite pass rusher. He is one of the best pass rushers in the league. Was Frank Clark ever one of the best pass rushers in the league? No, I don't think that he was. He was good, but was he ever one of the top 3 or top 5 pass rushers? I don't think I can make that case. Now, was playoff Frank one of the best big game pass rushers? Yeah, and if that's what Brett had said, then I think you could have parsed the statement a little bit more. But had he just said, look, we're bringing in this guy, and we think he's really good, but more importantly, we think he's going to bring an attitude to this team. He's going to bring an edge. He's going to show up in big games. That is so much different than saying he's an elite pass rusher. And had he, described Frank differently, I think fans would have had a different expectation. Because I feel like all along fans, especially with the money he was given and the way that the Chiefs built him up with that signing, that fans expected him to come in and give you 15 sacks every year and be one of the top 3-5 guys in the league.
Because he had 13 sacks when they traded for him, and he never got to double digits with the Chiefs.
No. That's why I say, I don't think you can say he was an elite pass rusher, but was he elite in the postseason? Yeah.
That's what's amazing. 58 games with the Chiefs, and he had 23 and a half sacks. 12 games in the playoffs, and he had almost 11 sacks. It's just ridiculous.
Was he an elite teammate when healthy? Yeah, he was.
And you know what? And you see him, working with Karlaftis. There's a little Alex Smith there at the end of his tenure with the Chiefs.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. He was a great influence to have around this team.
I'll remember Frank Clark fondly. And I'll remember him fondly because there are 2 Super Bowls, and man, put a microphone in front of Frank Clark, and I loved it because he brought I almost said the word.
Whoa.
He brought an FU to this team where, jumping off sides last year, all that, I told him it was going to be changed when I got here. And then James Palmer, people said you couldn't cash the check that you're, who? People say, they must not know who I am when I got that ring on my finger. And then, Burrowhead, take your ass back to Cincinnati. That Frank Clark will be remembered fondly because that was an FU, I'm here. What's gone on in the past in Kansas City defensively ain't happening now. We're going to go and bully some people around. That's what I remember Frank Clark. That was a sort of attitude change, too, from a group of guys that weren't showing up for things, that were being paid a lot of money but didn't really have that leadership and didn't really feel like they wanted to be there, and the whole getting along with all that stuff, and Bob Sutton and everything, to then Spagnuolo and then Frank Clark and Tyrann Mathieu coming in and sort of having this, no, we're going to be some dogs out here.
And I was thinking about this when you were talking about her during the first hour. Frank Clark, Alex Smith, Ring of Honor, Hall of Fame.
It's interesting.
I think Frank Clark absolutely will be. I think all of that about 2 Super Bowl rings and the contract will be the first thing forgotten about his legacy. The next thing that will be forgotten will be that weren't there some stretches in the regular season where he just either wasn't available, wasn't there very much? Yeah, I think, but Clark the Shark, playoff Frank, that's a Ring of Honor player, and I think a reasonable one too. I don't think it's every I don't want to throw barbs at anybody on accident, but Not everyone who wins will everyone who wins 2 rings with the Chiefs be around there? It'll be close. I don't know that James Winchester's ever going to get a statue. He'll always be a multi-time.
What would his statue be?
I think that's the one I want to see. That right there. Imagine that.
We
need some long snapping.
Inappropriate that people would
have your photo taken.
People would be taking some very awful pictures.
That would need to probably be up on a pedestal, maybe with some fencing around it. Yeah,
Yes,
for sure.
I agree.
But Frank Clark would not be what a teammate addition. His would be worthy, I think. And Alex Smith too. It's a different conversation.
And his induction ceremony would be fantastic. So I would sign up.
Got to
for
give
that.
him. They never want to give him the bleeping microphone. So please, then at least.
We had to get the microphone from people that were, with ESPN and NFL Network talking to him on the field. Hey, where's Frank Clark? Oh, there's Frank Clark. Let's go get Frank Clark. Let's go talk with Frank Clark. But yeah, he's a Denver Bronco. It does suck that he's a Bronco.
But
what if he's really bad, though?
I was going to say, on the other side, it's not going to matter because the Broncos aren't going to be good. So.
Yeah, that's probably
It's not going to be
true.
like Neil Smith coming in here and, the Broncos winning Super Bowls and that kind of thing.
What if he just What if through the entirety of Chiefs Broncos he just gives Jawan Taylor a big hug, or just gives Donovan Smith a big hug? They just kind of stand there, maybe sway a little bit. Double agent, build that legacy, Frank.
Yeah, that's great.
Double agent.
It was weird seeing Jamal Charles in a Denver Broncos uniform. It was really weird seeing Derek Johnson in a non-Chiefs uniform, and Donnie Edwards bothered me, because he finally started making Pro Bowls, even though he was worthy of Pro Bowls when he left KC. I don't know that this one will bother me as much. It's weird.
Yeah,
Alex Smith didn't bother me with what, but you're talking about
Neil Smith was the one that hurt the most. But
you're absolutely right about that. That is the one that really hurt. Albert Lewis hurt. Neil Smith hurt.
Lewis did hurt.
Neil Smith, that one hurt because then you watch Neil Smith go and win a couple Super Bowls, and it's like I'm happy for him, but I'm also pissed at the same time. Watching him in that uniform.
Michael Burton's gonna hurt.
Is he?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Deeply.
What if you change Michael Burton and now you keep Justin Ross? Won't hurt as much anymore.
Boy, if you ever saw Justin Ross in another uniform, that would really hurt.
I'll be damned if I see him in a Broncos, Chargers, or Raiders uniform or a Bengals uniform. Oh, God.
What's his statue going to look like?
You know what? Frank Clark to the Bengals would have bothered me. That would have bothered me. Anybody? Broncos?
That's fair. That's
Broncos, fair. It's like, they're fine. What was your line, Drake, about Frank Clark and the Broncos?
We won't ever have to worry about seeing playoff Frank again.
That's probably fair.
I appreciate that line. Speaking of lines, we'll talk about the Chiefs next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, hanging out with Matt Derrick, Chiefs Digest. So I went and looked at the center rankings and the guard rankings at Pro Football Focus heading into the season. Creed Humphrey's number 1 in the center rankings.
Justifiably.
Yep. Joe Thuney, number 5 of all guards, and Trey Smith,
too low,
number 13. So
probably also too low.
But 2 of their guards are top 15. I mean, you're talking about 64 starting guards in the NFL and 32 starting centers. So do the math there. 96 players. Chiefs have number 1, number 5, and number 13. The only other team that comes close, and it's very close, is Cleveland has the number 7 center, the number 3 and number 10 guard. So that adds up to 20. The Chiefs adds up to 19. That's the closest. So by the PFF rankings preseason going into the season, the Chiefs have the very best interior offensive line, better than the Eagles, because Landon Dickerson is behind Trey Smith and Thuney, and Jason Kelce is just behind Creed. He might be number 2, but he's still behind Creed. And then the 2 guards for the Chiefs rank ahead, so they're ahead of the Eagles. And the
Chiefs
Browns are close.
Is lower too.
Yes, and the Browns are close, but by those metrics specifically, Chiefs have the best interior offensive line in the NFL.
I can't argue with that. And I mean, honestly, when you think about Nick Allegretti is the next man up in there, and they've got some other guys too. I think they're deep there as well. So I think Allegretti it surprised me. I thought he would get a starting job somewhere around the league. Maybe he needs one more year to show it, because he hasn't got maybe needs somebody to get hurt, but you don't want that to get him some playing time. But he's starting caliber. So
yeah, Deneric Prince, is he starting caliber?
Starting caliber
is Deneric. That was just a random transition. Is Deneric Prince the running back version of Justin Ross this year now?
Can we get some middle ground in between those two?
No.
I mean,
no.
Honestly, I would say no, because I think Justin Ross is trailing Deneric Prince.
Thank you.
Right
That's
now,
the right take.
There it is.
I mean, they've all been anointed Deneric Prince as the kick returner, and completely get it, because he looks the part. I mean, whether he is the second coming of Nile Davis or not, and some people with the Chiefs will say that's actually maybe a somewhat of an insult to Deneric Prince, because Nile Davis had 0 hands, couldn't catch a football, and Deneric Prince has caught literally everything that has gone his way during these OTAs. So, I mean, that's a heck of a find. I mean, if Deneric Prince is everything that the Chiefs think that he is right now, and you could have a backfield of 2 guys that you found in the 7th round, an undrafted free agent, that's pretty solid scouting right there.
Yeah, the talk last year at this time was Pacheco, and that was a draft pick, it was a 7th rounder. But there was also Jerry and Ely, who was an undrafted free agent that people were really liking from Ole Miss. Now he's on the practice squad, right?
Yep, he's on the roster,
and he was more or less a receiver last year. And now he's a running back again.
Yeah, they moved him to wide receiver, then back to running back. But his star sort of has gone in the background of the up and coming Prince.
Yeah, and that's what's really surprising, is that Ely, with all of his speed and agility, that he's in that category, hasn't really been in the mix as a return guy. So I mean, that limits his value a little bit too. But I mean, the return ability is what is going to put Prince ahead. I mean, that's going to get him his roster spot. Because I mean, unless the Chiefs make any moves, I mean, clearly you're going to have Pacheco, Clyde, going to have Jerick McKinnon. Prince will be your 4th guy. You're not going to have a fullback. I mean, maybe that's just your backfield as it is. But also, I mean, we're assuming that Isaiah Pacheco is going to be ready by week 1, and I think he probably will. But I think it's questionable about whether or not Pacheco is ready to go first week of training camp. I mean, they may ease him back in a little bit. There may be a few of those guys that they do, and hey, they're going to have 6.5 months of training camp this year because of that Thursday night start. So they're going to have a lot of time to work guys in. But I mean, we'll see. But could that mean maybe a little bit more playing time for Prince opportunities early, or is that why you make sure you get McKinnon back so you can give Pacheco a little bit of time to ease in? I don't know, but Prince making the team.
It's interesting, as much as I love Pacheco and what he did a year ago for the Chiefs running game, it doesn't really concern me as much if it's like, he'll be eased in slowly. He may not be fully 100% for week number 1 against the Lions, because even though we're talking about Edwards-Helaire, who's been a disappointment as a first rounder, people know I love Jerick McKinnon. I feel okay with the backfield and the running back room and what they have, that if Pacheco isn't 100%, that it's not going to go from Isaiah Pacheco to then, let's say, Niall Davis as the running back, that every time he touches the ball, is he going to turn it over? He also can't catch the ball. Like, he's a one-dimensional guy that's going to get the ball and run, and hopefully when he gets tackled, he doesn't fumble. I like the backfield for the Chiefs and the makeup of it, and even, and when you include a guy like Deneric Prince that, can go out and catch the football, and those 4 guys, I mean, they're going to keep 4. So I would guess that, everybody else is on the outside looking in, that if Brett Veach is going and talking to the media about what he's seeing from Deneric Prince.
And the crazy thing is that, I mean, even though they're somewhat comparable size and, I think their styles have been compared to each other, I don't see the Pacheco and Prince being as nearly identical as some other people do. I mean, I do think they are a good complement. I mean, at this point, I think there's reason to believe that Prince is more polished as a pass catcher than Pacheco is. I think Prince looks to me, and this is just OTAs where they don't run the ball that much, but Prince looks more comfortable outside and Pacheco looks more comfortable inside. I mean, that to me, I think is a positive pairing.
It's interesting.
I'm really excited.
I do also wonder, like, we can't tell in OTAs and stuff like that, but Deneric Prince and his learning curve of being able to protect Patrick Mahomes.
That'll be a big question.
Because if he's in there for the passing game, that's the beautiful part about McKinnon, is that McKinnon, you start off with the fact that he's such a really good pass protector, and then you also throw in the fact that, oh, by the way, he's a phenomenal receiver out of the backfield and is a playmaker from that standpoint. You get the whole package with him. You don't get a one or the other, where Darrell Williams was a safety, was a security blanket for the Chiefs in protecting Mahomes. But with the ball in his hands, he wasn't Jerick McKinnon out of the backfield as a receiver. He was good. He caught everything, but he wasn't like put the ball in McKinnon's hands, and now he can go the distance with it and do some crazy things. It's that really awesome package. Do they have that maybe in, Deneric Prince, if he can pass protect, if they feel like with the ball in his hands and also his ability to catch the football? And I do think Pacheco is more, maybe not underrated, because I think he's viewed as a good pass catcher, but not like, Christian McCaffrey or anything, but maybe underutilized in what he could be as a receiver out of the backfield. It's not like he's lacking that, and they just have to bring somebody else in because Pacheco's not going to catch the ball or anything like that.
And, and the crazy thing is that, I mean, this time of year, because Pacheco and McKinnon have not been at OTAs and been out, Clyde's getting the majority of the work. So it's not like Clyde is completely out of the backfield.
Good for him. Absolutely. Good for him. And other guys get an opportunity.
And other guys get
like
good touches too.
What was Brett Veach talking about when he was loving up Deneric Prince?
I think we pretty much touched on it. I mean, just as far as the hands go, the speed, those are the two things. I mean, the fact that his hands have been much more impressive than they were anticipating.
Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest, our guest, and we talk some Kansas City Chiefs, and we talk some running back and some Bears.
There you go.
Fat Bear.
Eat that salmon.
Season.
It's too bad that this is the year without a fullback. Like an FB now is just a fat bear. We could have had a fat bear.
I mean, we need to get this going because last year I did send Josh the GIF of the mama bear peeing on the Cubs' head.
I remember this.
That was hysterical.
I remember this because we've got great taste.
Did you get bit by a jellyfish or stung by a jellyfish?
The cub was just sitting there behind Mom, and Mom had to go to the bathroom, and the cub was just sitting there very innocent looking, and all of a sudden gets peed on the head. It was hysterical.
You gotta know your surroundings. Head on a swivel, Bear. These are important rookie sort of lessons.
Now the bears sting and the jellyfish bite. This
is what my Twitter account will be for the next 6 weeks before training camp.
You know what? And
actually,
if you're
it's only a month.
Looking for more content.
5 weeks.
Follow Matt Derrick.
You need a lot of salmon in 5 weeks.
And Bears.
And salmon.
Thank you, Matt. You're the man. Ali Trost-Martin next.
This is Matt Coker from West Coast Men's Health. I'm proud to let you know that nationwide, our clinics have a 4.7 out of 5-star rating on Google.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Thank you to Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest. Our conversation with Matt Derrick, the Path to Training Camp with Matt Derrick. Each and every Friday we talk with him, presented by Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park, the only Volvo dealership in Kansas City, and has the largest inventory of new 2023 Volvos in the Midwest. Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park, or at premiervolvocarsoverlandpark.com. And Zero Res, something about a clean home that just makes you feel better. ZeroResKC.com. Our Path to Training Camp with Matt Derrick each and every Friday when we talk with him. Also, his path to bear season and cat mine and whatever it is. Right now, our path to talk some soccer with Allie Trost Martin joining us here in the zone on this Friday. Allie, how are you?
Hey, guys. I'm great. How are you? It has been a wild week, and not just in soccer. I mean, this is massive, massive news. Messi to Major League Soccer for all American sports, for North America. It's seismic. It's hard to put it into words, but it's been a lot of fun.
Well, I want to talk about this match tomorrow against Austin, but definitely the news with Messi deciding to head to Miami and not Saudi Arabia. You say massive, and it's hard to put into words, but can you attempt to do that as to what the meaning would be for American soccer, for the MLS, to the unable to hear locally land Ronaldo, but Lionel Messi agreeing to head to the MLS?
Yeah, it's almost hard to measure what or even say what that would be right now, because I think the ripple effect and the impact is going to be something that can only really be measured, once we're years and years from now. It's just, when you look back and see what Pelé did when he came to the Cosmos back in the 70s, I believe, and then when David Beckham came to Major League Soccer in the 2000s, I mean, both of those players drew so many fans out to stadiums, and also just people who became then interested in the game. I mean, you talk to 1 in 5 MLS fans now, and a lot of them will tell you that they got into the league because, well, David Beckham came over, and that's what caught my attention. And I think Messi is going to do that in an even bigger way because of his status in not just the game of soccer, but in worldwide sport. He is the arguably best and most famous, popular athlete of this time right now. I mean, the guy's got almost 500 million followers on Instagram. When you look at the social media impact already, just the numbers, it's reflective of just how big of a deal this guy is. And you're starting to see it in other ways as well, ticket sales and things like that. But it's going to be a large effort now in the next few years to see how stadiums and how the league is able to adapt to meet the demand that we're already seeing for Lionel Messi and getting out to matches. The Inter Miami ticket prices have already shot up over 1,000%. And just keep in mind this, to put it in perspective, an average MLS stadium holds, the ones that are purpose-built for soccer, hold anywhere from 18,000 to 30,000. Barcelona, where Messi, of course, played before in his career, holds about 100,000. I mean, the demand for ticket prices right now, I don't know if the reason these prices are so expensive is because these stadiums don't hold that many seats for how many people want to get out and potentially watch this guy play. And it's not even official yet. The deal hasn't even really been signed. It's just been announced, and his intention to come to Major League Soccer is where we're at this point. But it's hard to put into words, but I think the deal, the reported deal that he's signing with Inter Miami, shows you how they expect his introduction to Major League Soccer to really take shape, with him having the profit sharing elements with Apple and their new MLS season pass, and then of course with Adidas. I think that right there tells you what they're anticipating, and he's shown it before in other stops along in his career, PSG being a really good one with just jersey sales alone. I mean, for him to get a piece of that just goes to show you how much he and his party and the league are expecting fans from just a pure marketing perspective, how many people are going to start buying in to Major League Soccer because this player is here.
Well, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, if you're just simply talking about a contract or paying Messi, just money, there's no way you could approach what was the advanced contract after he was negotiating with the MLS and Apple of the Saudis offering him $1.5 billion. Like it's difficult to reach that number when you're talking about with a B, $1.5 billion. And you're right about the Apple TV and saying, look, all these different people that will now be buying into Apple TV in the season pass because they want to watch Lionel Messi across the world, not just locally in the United States. And you mentioned the ticket sales. We talked about that in the first hour, Ali, of just looking at some of the increase in pricing. And if you want to, right now at Tickets for Less, if you want to watch Sporting KC down in Miami, right now the get-in price at Tickets for Less is around $290. Now, you'd also have to then travel down there, but it might be worth it for some people just to go ahead and, get in on the action right now. When Miami heads to L.A., that get-in price right now is over $700. And the quickest trip that you would be able to go see Messi is a drive to Chicago, and the get-in price a few days ago was $50, and now it's about $350 to get into for one ticket to go see Miami take on Chicago, which would then be, if you're around here, obviously he's not going to be playing, at Children's Mercy Park, but it's not that long of a drive. It's a quicker commute to Chicago than it is to Saudi Arabia or Spain if you wanted to watch Messi play.
I would agree with you on that. And, I think this is good for Major League Soccer in another way, and you kind of just alluded to it there. It's long time been a challenge for the league to get fans to be engaged with the league as a whole beyond just their local team. I think that that's something that, especially with the new MLS season pass, you're seeing it with some of their programming there as well, trying to make it easy and more digestible for fans to watch and know what's going on with teams in other conferences and in other cities. And I think bringing in a player like Messi and potentially some other big names as well, as there have been reports that some of his former teammates and friends are possibly on their way to Miami as well. Of course, there's going to have to be some I think we're going to eventually see some roster rule changes just to ensure that, things are kept fair, because right now with the way things are set up, Miami doesn't have the ability to do that with, only 3 designated player spots. And that, of course, allows teams to bring players over with the transfer fee not counting against the cap. So it's going to be interesting just to even see how the rules in Major League Soccer change with this new player addition and all of just that side of the game. But there are so many things I think that are going to change. And, it's going to be great for growing the game here. And it couldn't have timed out better, too, with the World Cup in 2026 and just all of the eyes that are now going to be on MLS and soccer in the United States. I think it's hard to contextualize the impact now, because I think it's going to be something that we can only start to really talk about and document in the years to come. And once we see it actually happening, we get the numbers, we see the impact, when we take a look back 5-10 years from now.
Ali Trost-Martin is our guest. Do you think the plan is that, maybe when this becomes official and a press conference and all of that, do you think the plan maybe is for Messi to play, this year starting, late August, and then 24 full season, 25 full season, and on into 26 and the World Cup, and then call it a career at that point, like playing in Miami through then the United States and North America hosting the World Cup, and then that sort of being the swan song for Messi?
It's hard to say. I mean, it really just depends on where he feels like he's at. It's long been said that, MLS, retirement league, this is where guys go to kind of, call it quits. And that can't be said about Messi. This guy is still in his prime. He's a 7-time Ballon d'Or winner. He's the favorite to win that again. He's coming off of a World Cup. This isn't a player who's coming over just to kick his feet up. I mean, he wants to come here and win. Now, Miami right now couldn't be in a worse spot. They're sitting in last place in the Eastern Conference. They've got a lot of work to do. But right now, they do have a chance to win at least one trophy, and maybe even another. There's still 3 trophies available, with the CCL, of course, going to Liga MX this go. But you've got Leagues Cup this summer. You've also got the U.S. Open Cup, which Inter Miami is one of the 4 teams still alive in that tournament. They made it to the semifinals. And the team that wins the U.S. Open Cup is able to punch their ticket to the CONCACAF Champions League, which is now being rebranded to the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which would be, of course, a huge competition. It's a big deal for teams to get into that competition each year. The new Leagues Cup competition is going to be a big one, and Miami's in the same group as Atlanta United, who, of course, have Thiago Almada, who is one of Messi's teammates on the Argentinian national team. And then you've also got MLS regular season, the league play, which MLS Cup, now 9 teams make it into the playoff with the 8th and 9th seed competing in a play-in game to see who advances. So, there's still opportunities this season. I think my thought would be that Messi comes in and immediately gets in and tries to help Miami start winning now. And I think with some of the reports that we're seeing of other big signings that Inter Miami is reportedly going after, and former teammates and friends of Lionel Messi, I think they're going to try to make those moves quickly.
Visiting with Alytros Martin, our guest, as we talk about, we will talk some sporting and some local soccer, but also Messi. The one of I think maybe the bigger worldviews of Messi making the decision that he did is, Sporting couldn't land Ronaldo. Saudi paid him all that money to head over there and play. He doesn't seem all that happy with the competition that he's playing against and the teammates he has with him, that it's clearly not the same level of play. While the money is certainly nice, these guys are at the level they are in their careers because they are uber competitors and they want to play at the highest level against some of the best players in the world. And it is a far cry from the talent in Saudi Arabia versus even in the MLS, and certainly with the Premier League and European soccer and things like that. The fact that $1.5 billion was offered to Lionel Messi and he turned it down to come to the MLS, I wonder what kind of blow that is to that league's plan of buying some of the biggest names to attract some other names to increase their league, to try to put that on the national stage if Messi turns him down and Ronaldo seems to be unhappy. I do wonder what that does to their bigger plans of soccer, as opposed to if Messi agreed to $1.5 billion, then who's next to go to Saudi Arabia and they can continue just to buy players and continue to increase the market value over some other leagues and maybe even the MLS.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch how and Messi opting to go to Major League Soccer instead of Saudi Arabia, by the way, I think was a huge get for MLS in terms of also attracting other talent, because he goes to Saudi Arabia and I think they have a much easier time in addition to the money that they've been offering these guys in getting some of those players. But that whole thing is going to be really fascinating to watch and see how it really develops in the coming years. But with Messi making this decision, a lot of the reports were saying too, just how important this was for just pure contentment and lifestyle.
Yeah.
He was really, reportedly unhappy when he was at PSG. It was, injuries he was dealing with, a long commute to the training fields, and family wasn't necessarily that happy. They have a place in the Miami area now, and I think the happiness ultimately for not just himself but his family what outweighed the money. And the other thing too with this Apple deal, or this Apple profit sharing and Adidas profit sharing deals woven into the larger deal presented to him by Inter Miami, the ceiling on that, it's hard to know where that is.
Yeah,
this
true.
could be a long-term, very lucrative deal for him, especially given too that part of that deal is the opportunity to purchase stake in a future expansion club when he retires or eventually leaves the league. So that right there, that was also in David Beckham's deal, which then presented the Miami opportunity, and then that has led now to Lionel Messi, who is signing a similar deal with something like that woven into to the financials. So I think, yes, $1.6, $1.5 billion over just 3 years. I mean, like $500 million almost a year for 3 years. Like it's hard to wrap your mind around that much money. But I think the contentment factor and the happiness factor really were big for Messi and his family. And so, and you also have to give credit to Inter Miami and their ownership group. Jorge Mas and the Mas family have been very vocal about wanting to make this move for years now. So, we've heard Messi to Miami over the years, but it never really seemed like it felt too good to be true. And so the work that they put in, David Beckham, everyone to make this happen, and of course Major League Soccer really just pulling out all the stops to put an offer on the table that was appealing enough for Messi to want to come here. And I do think it sets him up well, although it's not going to be, I don't think $1.6 billion, but I still think the upside is really high with just how they laid out the deal that we've seen in reports.
Yeah, it's also interesting when you talk about contentment and family happiness that, publicly his wife has already stated her feeling uncomfortable about living in Saudi Arabia as a woman, that as a foreign national, she would have to ask permission from the government to go to certain places. Now, I would guess by being the wife of Lionel Messi, she would be granted permission. But still, like thinking of those things, you're right. Because then it's like, okay, do they grant her permission? But then, okay, what about some other people that are rich in Saudi? Like, I don't know how that whole thing works. You're right. But there is no getting around go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I'll also add, too, that, when you look at where they're going in the United States, like Miami has such a large Latino and Argentinian community and population. Like there is already that so deeply woven into the Miami community and area that that alone from just a comfortability standpoint I'm sure plays a huge role. So I mean I cannot wait to see what matches in Miami look like, and I don't even know right now. They have a temporary stadium in Fort Lauderdale while their new one is being built, but that temporary stadium I think only holds 18,000. So I don't be surprised if Inter Miami are going to have to play at Hard Rock Stadium or something just to accommodate all of the demand for people wanting to come out to these games. I think the temporary stadium would honestly collapse. I don't think it could physically hold what fans are the numbers at least that we're hearing that are wanting to come out, and it's a huge revenue opportunity. MLS want to be able to figure this out. Now, also think about this, because if you look at teams around the league who now Seattle, they play at Lumen Field, so that's where the Seahawks play. That stadium can hold much larger crowds. You look at Atlanta United, and they also play in an NFL stadium that can hold a lot more numbers. But other teams that also have an NFL stadium or a college stadium available within driving distance of their city and where they play, are they going to want to pretty much sign up for a neutral site just to accommodate more fans? Because you're kind of taking away a little bit the home field advantage if you are choosing to, hey, we're going to open this thing up, make sure more fans can come out and watch, but we're also losing a little bit of home field advantage because you're going to have so many people in that stadium that are there just to see Lionel Messi, not necessarily cheering on your team, even though it is technically a home match. So I think that's going to be interesting to see. And something I was texting with Josh about yesterday when we were talking about me coming on is, can these stadiums and the league figure out a way forward to ensure the safety that's going to be necessary? I mean, there's going to have to be increased levels of security, of new protocols introduced. This is something that is going to change the fabric of the league and how it's operated up to this point in so many ways, so many areas. It's really, that's why it's hard to really quantify the impact, because the impact isn't just financial. It's how every operative aspect of MLS and a match day and just a season are going to go.
Yeah, it's a great point about giving up home field advantage, because thinking about that when Miami heads to Kansas City eventually, whether that be next year in a couple of years. How close are the Chiefs and renovations in Arrowhead to match the what the World Cup would like? And if they have those renovations taken care of and parts of that are already out, then in theory you'd be able to host a match there with a full-size soccer pitch there at Arrowhead Stadium. But would Sporting want to give up that home field advantage of where you've got mainly all Sporting fans there watching Messi, or head to a 70,000-seat stadium where, yes, there's more revenue, there's more money to be made for Sporting, but you would lose also that sort of intimate home field advantage because you'd have so many casual fans that'd be showing up just to simply watch Messi and not necessarily be a part of the die-hard, those true blue Sporting fans.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's going to be so fascinating to watch in years to come. But the last thing I want to say on just, the Messi impact and to help maybe put it into a little bit more context for, American sports fans, Kansas City sports fans listening and watching right now, thinking like, oh, well, how big of a deal is this guy really? I know social media doesn't always tell the full story. Followers are, it's just a small little, glimpse into how much people are engaged with one individual, but I thought this was fascinating. Lionel Messi's personal Instagram following is 468 million, which when you compare that to some of the biggest NFL, NBA stars here in America, LeBron James, 154 million, Tom Brady, 14 million. So just to put that into, the terms of how we see and know some of the biggest stars in our sport here in America, it's hard to really measure just how well known, loved, and supported Lionel Messi is by sports fans around the world. And it's going to be massive. Inter Miami social media was gaining 1,400 followers on Instagram by the minute. They've already surpassed the most, every team that was ahead of them in Major League Soccer for the most followed team. They've got more followers than every NHL, NFL, NHL, and MLB team here now in, the United States. So, this is from a brand standpoint, Inter Miami is about to take center stage here in the U.S., not just in Major League Soccer, but in every professional sports league.
Unbelievable. Allie Trost Martin is our guest. I wanted to talk a little bit more about Sporting, but before we let you go, they take on Austin tomorrow, 7:30, right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. As sort of a brief synopsis from your standpoint, the first 9 matches versus the most recent 7, where it's just been stark and night and day. And minus 12 goal differential and so many games where they couldn't even score a goal. 3 total in those 9 matches to now 13 in these last 7, 4 wins, 1 loss, a couple of ties mixed in, and 3 points out of the playoffs that wouldn't even be that play-in match with 8 and 9 playing each other. What's the difference in what we're seeing with this? Is it health? Is it, Peter McVee has said, stay the course. Look, I know people are upset about this and that, but it's going to work out. And the last 7 matches, we've seen that.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. I think it's health. I think it is, of course, confidence always plays a huge part. We've known, Daniel Shalhoub and all those guys who weren't scoring in the ways that they are right now in this current form the team is in. They weren't bad soccer players necessarily. The team just wasn't really clicking and coming together. And I think one example of that, and Vermees had touched on it, when you go back to the Portland game, Sporting Kansas City earning that 4-1 win at home. Felipe Hernandez kind of put the icing on the cake with that 4th goal. Roger Espinoza threading a beautiful ball through to him. And then the goal before, 2 goals before that, the game winner, was set up by Tim Leibold and Graham Zusi. Now, all 4 of those players that I just mentioned, Zusi, Leibold, Espinoza, and Felipe Hernandez, all came off the bench in that game. And I think what Sporting has lacked is just the ability to have guys come in and fit the role in which the team needs them to play. And I think in the past, when they were without so many of their key players and stars, it was putting a lot of pressure on players who were then being asked to go and quote unquote, be the guy, be the hero for the team. And I think at times that took a lot of players out of it took them out of doing what was best for the team because they were so focused on trying to help, make that play to help get the team back in the game or to be the hero in a certain moment or a play. And so I think the team had a lot of guys who were kind of in between two minds at times. There was the, hey, how can we work together best as a team? And, hey, what can I do right now because we're struggling? We need to start turning things around. And now I think you see a group of players who are just connected and things are flowing. The chemistry is incredible, and there isn't that pressure of, oh, my gosh, like, I need to be the guy. And when you have more and more players available, when the results start turning around, but mostly having your full complement of players, I think that really has been the biggest difference. And then, they've made a couple of small tweaks as well within kind of how the team has lined up in the game. Eric Tommy was mostly playing on the left-hand side in the midfield in those two attacking midfield roles. He's now moved over on the right. Gadi Kinda has played a lot more, or Remy Voltaire in that left attacking midfield spot. And I think both of them have combined really well with Daniel Shalhoub on the left-hand side, and then either, Logan Ndembe, Tim Leibold. And Logan Ndembe, I think, is a really underrated player, as well as Jake Davis, both who weren't really playing in those two wingback roles at the start of the season, but have come in and have brought some great physicality, great athleticism, skill, both going forward and defensively. So, again, just another position group that isn't, one of those front three attacking spots that really contributes to the attack, but has been a huge bright spot that I think has really helped the team. So there are a lot of different things, but I think, health is a big one, and the confidence that comes with just scoring goals finally.
No, it's a great point about just like trusting in your teammates and not feeling like, we're struggling, I'm going to get us out of this slump. I'm going to be the one that does this, and instead of like, okay, we as a group, the collective getting out of this and playing as connected as they certainly look like these last 7 matches. Ali Trost-Martin. Ali, really appreciate the time as always. Love the information and the conversation around what this means nationally, worldwide, for Lionel Messi and this sporting side that is playing some really good soccer as of late, and hopefully have turned it around, and only, as we said, 3 points out of what would be the playoffs, that you don't have to worry about that play-in part of it. So, Ali, thank you so much.
Which
appreciate
is
it.
wild.
Yeah, right?
Which is wild. And one more note on that,
7 losses, 2 draws, and ugh.
Yeah, well, and when we talk about Inter Miami and how they've struggled right now, and then you add in the Messi news, another number that has drastically improved for Inter Miami is their betting odds to win MLS Cup. They were at plus 20,000 before the Messi news, and then after have improved to, I think, plus 1,800. They're in last place in the East. Like, it's nuts. MLS right now, it's just like, doesn't matter what season you've had up to this point, just try to get in, and anything can happen. So don't be surprised to see Sporting make a run in the playoffs, even though they struggled to start the year, because all you need to do is finish 8th or 9th.
Yep, and Miami right now, as I'm looking at the table, they are 6 points out of at least even making it for even that play-in. So with throwing Messi, we'll see what happens as he gets to the club late August. Ali, awesome as always. Really appreciate the time and the conversation. We will catch up soon. Have a great call tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.
Absolutely. There's Ali Trost-Martin joining us as we talk about the massive news that came down. What was that? Wednesday? Was it yesterday? What's today? Is it Friday already? Is it Monday? I hope it's not Monday. Is it the weekend and we're working overtime? I'm not sure. But that massive news for Messi joining MLS and turning down Saudi Arabia. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. Mick Schaefer will hang out with us. If you didn't hear or know, he is going to join us in the next segment to the end of the show. More Zone on a Friday. It's Sports Radio 810 WHB.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson.
Thank you to Allie Trost Martin joining us as we talk some soccer, some Messi. Todd Lebo has apparently caught a northern pike.
We're diagnosing it as a northern pike.
It looks like a northern pike to me. If there's one thing I know about fish, I know northern pikes.
Yeah, and he's up north. He's in Canada.
Yeah, so if that was a southern pike, it would be...
Well, they migrate for the summer
right?
a lot of times.
I think we could give people...
They summer
They
in Canada.
summer down in Texas.
Where do you typically summer? Well, we got a nice place in Long Island and the Hamptons. It's just very nice. This is where we typically summer.
I think we could give listeners 5 guesses as to which of the 4 of us first went, I think it's a pike, and I don't think anyone would get it.
No, they would know because
I added the northern part.
That's true.
And to be quite honest, we might be wrong.
It looks a lot like a pike,
It could be
though.
a perch.
No,
it could be.
Yeah.
It could have been a long, stretched out perch.
That was a guppy. That's he's using that for bait.
You ever see a full-grown anchovy? Not that shape.
Probably use a soft raid fish for the bait. I would
Have you
guess.
asked him?
No, that was
text him.
Drake's picture. I don't know. I mean,
Text him and
Drake
we'll
didn't
see.
take it presumably, but Drake found that picture.
No, Lebo texted it to me.
Okay, well,
With no context, just the photo.
that's crazy. I thought Lebo and I were like actually friends or whatever, but I guess not.
Ask him what he used. Was he using smelt or alewives, or was he using the small whitefish?
What's a great
What was he
question.
looking for? Like chubs? What was he using to be able?
He's looking for those.
Yeah. What about the sucker? Which one was he looking? Which one was he using?
Just ask him
to be
which
able to-
direction of pike that was. It was western pike.
It's a central pike.
Southeastern pike.
And
It just means more than southeastern pike.
It was the place.
I like that one.
It was the place, and he's still looking for Broadway now.
SEP.
Blaine Gabbert, not a huge fan of the SCP.
Oh, I loved that.
He liked the big pike. Yes. The prairie pike. That's what he
Central
loves more.
Plains pike.
Central, the CPP. It's like, oh man, it's they're the CPP's expanding again. These damn expansion teams. Mick Schaefer is hanging out with us. One other small note too that I thought was sort of interesting when she was talking about Lionel Messi and sort of comfort.
Lionel or Lionel?
Lionel.
Yeah.
Is it Nicola? Is it Nikolai?
Messi
is it
and
Jokic?
Jokic
Is it Jokic?
is
Is it
fine.
Messi and Jokic? Is it Messi and the Joker? Is it Moker and the Joker? You know, how do you pronounce some of those things? But Messi and
I'm in media, so that's I have to learn it. You guys don't.
I don't.
You're what?
I'm in media.
In media.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
The media.
no.
I'm at a medium.
Yeah, I mean, I work for a medium, but I'm not really in the media. You know, we're entertainers. Is what we're doing. We're opinion shapers. That's what we are. So she had talked about like the comfort of the family, and I'd pointed out that a month ago, or maybe even less than a month ago, a few weeks ago, his wife had publicly talked about her discomfort of living in Saudi Arabia, and by not being a citizen there, as being a foreign, citizen, she would have to ask permission to go to specific places in Saudi Arabia during Ramadan, which has already passed. But during Ramadan, women can't be in public consuming alcohol or eating pork or a number of different things. What they have to wear, while some of those things have been laxed over the years, that women can vote now. It would be an interesting place and a culture shock to go from Spain or to be living in Miami, where you own a residence anyway, and then living in Saudi Arabia. So how much money that Messi has already made is enough to where you go, okay, honey, sorry, but we're in a country that just doesn't respect you. Yeah. Or we can go to Miami, where there's a Latin population, there's an Argentinian population. We already have been there. We are familiar with that. And I'm going to make a boatload of money with Apple TV and Adidas, but it's not as much as $1.5 billion.
You can go out wearing whatever you want. In fact, in Miami, they encourage less clothes.
Yeah,
Yes.
nothing. Just wear whatever you. It's the exact opposite almost. It's more clothes in Saudi.
Saudi Arabia.
Naked in South Beach in Miami. Where
they'd be able to catch a lot more great golf in Saudi Arabia now, but
that's right.
It's really just a matter of perspective.
How many of those events are in Saudi Arabia?
I have no idea.
It's crazy. They would go from like Dubai to Oregon, right? From the Middle East to Tulsa.
That is an odd. I honestly don't know how many will be there as opposed to just them being the financial backing of now just the regular PGA Tour.
I would imagine the regular PGA Tour will still have a lot of their same events.
There's a little back-to-back here. They're in Miami in October, and then they head over to Saudi Arabia in early November.
See?
Back-to-back.
That's and that fight continues with Messi can tell them about the pros and cons of both.
Look at this. In order, you had Adelaide, Singapore, Tulsa. DC.
I don't think they had the full
Orlando,
list below that.
Mayakoba.
Mexico, U.S. Yeah.
It's an interesting tour.
And it's, every couple weeks?
Yeah, that's a really interesting tour. Do you think they're going to adopt the teams? Like the PGA Tour adopt like the Live Tour teams and the team format?
I don't think so. I don't think a whole lot of golf fans are clamoring for that.
I don't care. I don't want to watch teams.
Same.
Like I want to watch Ryder Cup teams. That's
right.
It. That's it.
We don't need it. I don't need it every week.
Yeah. I don't even care about NASCAR teams, and they've done that forever.
They do the some different events. They'll do the Stapleford scoring system at that one event, and they'll do the match play as well. But I mean, those are just kind of one-offs, and afterward, you don't have golf fans clamoring for more of those. I think just the basic singular individual golf will do. I don't know how well it's done on the Live Tour. That's been out of sight, out of mind. They don't get a whole lot of eyeballs watching them, people there, but they do shill out a ton of money, which is an odd dichotomy. Get that work if you can. Listen, you don't have to produce results or have any interest in you, but we're going to pay you double and have you work half.
Do you know what the names of the Live Tour golf teams are?
I have no idea.
I have no idea either. I just looked it up because I was curious. The Four Aces, the Cliques, the Crushers. These are now also what you can find at the tournament.
This
tournament
is
at
a
your
roller
local
derby. This is a roller derby.
Your local 3 and 2 tournament this weekend. The Fireballs, the High Flyers, the Ironheads, the Majestics, the Range Goats.
These are horrible names.
These are pretty bad.
Rippers, Smash, Stingers, and Torque.
It's almost like you have 30 seconds to think of a name. Go.
These are like tour.
We'll do Smash. Time's running out. We'll do Smash.
These are trivia night names. It's like, hey, come on, let's you four together. What if we do our first letter of each of our names? It's nothing.
11 o'clock on field 10. It's going to be the Fireballers taking on the Smash. And then at 12:30, you're going to find the Rippers are going to play the Crushers.
But the only reason you talk about Ryder Cup, the only reason I pay attention to that, or the only reason I like that is because it's country v. country or country v. continent, basically.
Right, yeah.
It's an Olympic style deal where like you can add whatever lame sport to the Olympics. I'm going to love it because I could cheer for my country against other countries.
Absolutely. The Olympics, curling. We watch curling during the Olympics.
Mainstream, baby.
Curling is awesome during the Olympics.
Trampoline.
I've never watched curling outside of the Olympics except for when Jared Allen was trying to get into curling and try to make the Olympic squad, and they had one of his events on TV. I'm like, let me go check out Jared Allen real quick as he slides down the ice and delicately lets go of the stone, and like, I'll watch. The only time I've ever even watched it outside of the Olympics. But Olympic time, honey, sorry, I can't put the kids to bed tonight because the United States has a huge match against Great Britain tonight in curling.
I love this calf roping celebration, too, whenever you get like a bullseye.
And I don't have this problem with golf because I personally am a citizen of Range Goats.
Who's on Range Goats?
That's Bubba's team.
Okay.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, Bubba Watson,
The
Harold
Aces.
Varner,
The Aces are
Taylor Gooch,
Dustin Johnson.
Is that Thomas? Is it pronounced Peters? Petras? There's an I and the E in there.
We'll go with that.
If you don't know, I don't feel bad about not knowing. I know like 4 golfers, and 4. 3 of them are from Mario.
Martin Keimer is the captain of the Cliques. Keimer, Captain Cliques. Bryson DeChambeau is of course, Crushers. God, that is so Bryson, you can name it. Crushers!
But what about this? No. We'll go with Crushers.
Crushers! Well, we've got these. A Crusher!
He actually just wanted the team name to be the sound of a beer can crunched against his forehead, but they were like, we need letters.
I just wanted to be a sound.
Now here we have the going up against the Range Goats.
The Majestics, Ian Poulter, Lee Westwood, Henrik Stenson.
Stickks, by the way. Now here they're listed as co-captains: Poulter, Stenson, Westwood, and then Sam Horsfield. No, not a co-captain. If you're the only non-co-captain on the team,
shouldn't Sam Horsfield be on the Range Goats?
I think that would have made a lot of sense.
Oh man, that would have been fantastic. All right, so now that we know that for the first time I've ever looked at the Live Tour
I can't believe we haven't done this bit before.
I'm looking forward to them being broken up, and we'll see what happens with the PGA Tour. So a lot of money being passed around. Some involving Saudi Arabia, some turning down the money from Saudi Arabia.
A lot of hypocrisy being passed around.
I mean, you ain't wrong about that, man. So, hey, no, it really worked out well because they offered me the CEO of what is going to be the PIF a little bit later on. So, I mean, this is what's great for the PGA Tour, and I really didn't need to keep people in the know. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, wrap up this hour next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com.
We continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Briscoe, Drake, Mick Schaefer, KSHB 41 Sports Director, hanging out with us. In the next segment, top of the 1 o'clock hour, I want to hear from Brett Yormark and also Travis Goff as Big 12 Mexico.
Zoom they did. We didn't even know about yesterday. We stumbled upon it.
Right. Big 12 Mexico that they are introducing with Kansas and Houston heading to Mexico City to play a basketball game that is between two conference members that will not be a conference game in the standings. But
I didn't know that part. Why not?
Yeah, it's not a conference game in the standings. It goes as a non-conference game.
It's in December, although they do start conference games.
Like the Big Ten will have conference games and then mix in some non-conference games that aren't like the old SEC Big Ten Challenge or something like that because they started a little bit early because they've got so many games. But this one will not be that. And we'll hear from Brett Yormark talking about that in the years when they have these games, it will be against teams that will only be playing once that year. I mean, there'll be some home and aways in the Big 12. So pretty much he's saying the schedule hasn't been released yet, but KU and Houston are only playing once in the conference this year. I mean, he's said this already. Like KU, the non-conference schedule is pretty much set. They announced that on Monday once they get the contract done with Wichita State.
Chances are those could be the two best teams that year in the conference.
Yeah. So it's just so we at least we know that now they're going to play twice. KU and Houston, they'll play twice, one in Mexico City and one in either Houston or Allen Fieldhouse. So that'll be a lot of fun from that perspective. But Big 12 Mexico, and how do you think outside the box to draw in more revenue? That's the thing about Brett Yormark that, I think you and I talked about when he agreed to be the commissioner. It was like they thought outside the box to bring this guy in whose career is not athletics and coming up as an AD and then a commissioner. It's marketing and TV deals and revenue generating and thinking of different ways to do that. And all of a sudden it's like, well, where can you go for these TV deals? We can go it's like, let's go down to Mexico. Yeah. Let's get Big 12
Mexico. Something nobody's done before. He's so proactive instead of being reactive. The leadership in the Big 12 forever has been like, should we do this? Has the SEC done it before? Let's wait for the Big Ten. Okay, Big Ten. Okay, let's talk about maybe doing this and then put it on the table and then next spring vote on it for a couple years down the road. I mean, that's been the leadership forever, and it's not just the Big 12, but just to be forward thinking and push the envelope and get what some stuff might not work. You're trying it. This might not work in Mexico. I bet it does. Now, part of this might be, this proactiveness might have to do with the Big 12 tournament and where it stays or goes. I've heard some whispers of wanting to take it to New York, which I think would be dumb. But Yormark's, there's nothing off limits, and he's just, he's pulling the trigger on things.
Yeah, it's interesting. If they were to take it to New York, Madison Square Garden, I'm assuming not necessarily Brooklyn. Well, if they add in UConn. Like, hey, UConn, you want to play in the...
New Yorkers haven't even heard of college sports.
Oh, I know, yeah. The time New Yorkers care about college sports is Friday night of the Big East semifinal tournament. The old Big East with Syracuse and UConn and Georgetown and those teams
like 20 years ago
playing on a Friday night, which was the place to be in conference tournament week, was that Friday night semifinal of the Big East, but it ain't that anymore. So, keep it right here. On 810.
Hey guys, Matt Coker here from West Coast Men's Health to let you know that you don't have to take Viagra for the rest of your life. Acoustic wave therapy has changed the game. Trust me.
had plenty of people that are like, "Oh, you got your haircut? Yeah, I do it my like." The whole fading and everything, like the lining up and
cut your. So I mean, on top though, when you trim it with the scissors, how do you do that?
The same way that a barber would do that.
So I imagine you're looking in the mirror the whole time, right?
Well, I do have a mirror in front of me.
But how do you know? I mean, you can't see the top of your head. How do you know you're getting a different clump of hair each time to
it's a
cut
feel.
It's a feel thing.
It's a feel. Yeah, because when you have a clump that you pull it up between the fingers, you don't cut the whole thing. You cut about halfway through, and then you pull up another clump, and then that will be missing. Will be a little bit lower, so then you know exactly where you're cutting with that clump too. I've cut my own hair since I was like 19. So
I think about shaving my head myself.
A lot of
like
experience
every few months
of being able to look in the mirror and then anher mirror and be able to line up the back of your hair.
That right there seems like that is both the highest risk, highest reward moment, and the reason that I just don't.
It's easy. It is now. I mean,
and
it
you
might
get
not
like
have been
around
easy.
the back of your ears and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, I do that. Yeah, absolutely. Because we were talking about, I didn't realize you were supposed to
do
like
a good job. I've never noticed any.
I appreciate it.
Sort of.
Me neither.
Kind of bad.
I'm kind of a
crop circles. Nothing like
it
that.
Sucks while it cuts. Well, it certainly does suck. I didn't realize you were supposed to tip the barber or the hairdresser or whatever, because I had cut my own hair for a long time, and then I had started going to a different place when I was in Louisville, and I had just simply paid.
They charged you a cost. You paid it.
I paid it. I was unaware of this common cultural payment tip on top of that.
They didn't give you the option to tip, like on your receipt or something like that? Or
I don't know. I just signed it.
Back then, they probably didn't have the kiosk. They spin around.
Yeah, I just signed it because somebody had asked like that day, like, "Oh, well, how much do you typically tip?" I'm like, "How much do I what? For what? For what do you mean? How much did it cost, or how much? Well, how much did? Am I supposed to? I didn't like. Yes, of course you are. It was like I was just totally ignorant to this because I never tipped myself. I would always pay myself like the $25.
Sure.
Hey, here's
You
$25.
pat yourself on the back with the mirror to make sure you hit the
That's exactly right. And then when I moved back here to KC, then I went and hung out with my buddy Lemos at Midwest Barbery. And
Did you tip him?
Yes,
Cheap
I
son
did,
of a
because then
bitch.
I knew that I was supposed to be tipping him. So I was aware.
Standard 1%, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The tip was he gets to be my friend.
I'm gonna say your name on the radio, okay?
Yes, here's your tip. Why are you charging me for this haircut? I'm talking about this later on. Oh wait, because if you don't charge me, it's illegal. I swear. He's charging me full price. He actually did, but I love him.
He did though, but now you're cutting your own hair again. So you guys have a falling out, or
no?
You're back to cutting your own hair,
right? Because of COVID, I just went back to cutting my own hair, and then I'm like, well, now I'm just gonna keep doing that. I do miss him though. I miss.
Isn't that the only time you talk to him?
Well, we talk from time to time, but he's got a full-time job. I got a full-time job and kids. But I used to, when I would come, I just go down there and hang out at the barbershop.
Would you cut like other people's hair in college and stuff?
My son's. That's the only. I cut my son's hair. Wow. That's it.
You don't, not your daughter's?
No. No chance.
She cuts her own.
Yes, she does. Look, I cut it. Yay! All right.
Gotta start somewhere.
I don't have bangs anymore.
No, my sister-in-law cuts her hair. But doesn't cut it though. It's just like, oh, let's cut off the dead ends of this particular hair, as you would know, Mick, in dealing with those things. So no, I cut my hair. I cut my son's hair. He's got the hard part. He's got the fade. Everything.
The hard part.
Oh yeah. Oh,
nice.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a hard part?
I have actually. I have had a hard part.
Kind of dirty. You want to take a shower? Like, this is not me.
No, I didn't like it.
Did you feel like Nate Bukaty?
No, God, that'd be so cool.
He's a hard parter.
Oh man,
we ought to get you just some racing stripes in the side next time. Just go ahead and add it, see how you feel. Yeah, a little Bosworth, maybe a lightning bolt.
I'm going to do that next time. I mean, I'm due for hair. I'd like to cut it today, but I got other things going on. But yeah, next week when I cut my hair, should I put the Z?
Cut your own hair.
Oh, it's about 35, 40 minutes total.
Oh, it's a while.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
wow.
Well, I'm kind of OCD when it comes to, which is why you're like, oh, it doesn't look like you actually cut your. Well, yes, because I don't just go quickly through it. I mean, it's going to look like this for the next 3-4 weeks unless I really mess it up. Then
what's the worst you've ever messed it up? Do you have a plan for messing it up, like where you just go real short, or have you never really suffered that fate?
No, knock on wood. But then
I hope you come in bald next week.
Just shave it. just take it all off. Guess what? It's probably going to grow back.
Weird thing is he goes to a barber for a shave though. He's never
Weird.
shaved his own
It's
face.
strange.
Straight
but-
razor shave.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I only do that. I do not.
I've seen too many
shave.
mafia movies
know,
to do
right?
that. You gotta get your throat slashed.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's odd when you're laying back and they've got the straight
Yeah,
razor
no thanks.
on your throat.
On your throat.
It is a weird feeling when that happens. But if you want to get that straight razor shave, go to Midwest Barbery with my buddy Limos.
Another great reason to leave a good tip.
That's exactly right. Next time you show back,
Leave a good tip because Jason ain't doing it. Yep.
I am now.
Line up my beard here, and I'm gonna tip you 200% today. Just a reminder.
Luckily, it was only the one time. I had found out pretty quickly that was the case. So now I know.
I couldn't. I'm impressed. I couldn't come close to cutting my own hair.
That's the first time Mick's
No
ever
way
been
you
impressed.
could
Not this.
Cloth that yourself.
No, not this. No,
Flock of
I've cut
seagulls.
other people's hair. My mom has
You
cut
have?
my hair. I have. But I have been very nervous to cut my own. I even make Renee do the lineup on the back sometimes, just shave the back of my neck.
can't
I
do
don't
it
like
yourself?
having. I am afraid to try and then to leave like a chunk in the middle or something. But
You
you've
ever,
really inspired me today.
You ever gone in reverse in your car?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you do know how to look through a mirror and
The fire
and navigate
hydrants on
things.
my street are barely there anymore at this point. My bumper is obliterated.
I bet it is. Mick Schaefer's our guest. Let's hear from Brett Yormark.
How's your bumper, Mick?
Oh man,
obliterated?
It's obliterated, man. I can barely walk.
KU is
First
taking
to
on
sit.
Houston in a game down in Mexico City in Big 12 Mexico that is being announced. And Brett Yormark explains that it's a conference game, but also not a conference game, but yet it is a conference game, but not a conference game. He'll explain.
It's obviously a conference game, but it's not going to go against the conference record. Based on the format and scheduling that we'll probably speak more about here, in the near future. Certain teams are going to, from a conference perspective, are going to play other conference members twice and others once. In the case where you're only playing an opponent in the conference once, we are going to have some other opportunities for those for a second game, like Mexico City. It won't count against the conference record, but it will be obviously effectively a conference game.
So there you go. It is obviously a conference game because these two teams are in the same conference, but it will not count as a conference game in the standings.
Yeah,
so
I got that.
If KU and Houston end with the same record, well, I guess the tiebreaker would be them. Well, there are no tiebreakers in the Big 12 and all of that stuff, but you get the point. Or what about this?
There's tiebreakers. Well, for seeding.
For seeding,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
but you would get the Big
Trophy,
12
yeah.
champion. Let's look at it this way: what if Houston beats KU in Mexico City and then finishes one game behind KU in the standings in the Big 12? You know what they would be? Second place, apparently.
Yeah.
Because
so is this
they'd
a
be game.
friendly?
It's a friendly. Great call. Yes,
that's great.
I'm still trying to figure this stuff out, but that sounds maybe
Yeah,
the
it's
kind of what I understand a friendly is.
But it's a friendly, but counts as a game. With,
not a conference game.
Yeah, with your NCAA tournament resume.
Yeah,
So-
it's a non-con, long con. Because by the end of the year, it's going to seem
It's
like
a
kind of
non-con
game.
con.
Yeah. Brett Yormark explains why Mexico City.
The sport is so global now, basketball, and basketball will be a catalyst for us as we think about international expansion and building our brand. And you only have one chance to launch a new initiative. And for us at the conference, it was critically important to have two of our biggest and most profound basketball brands kind of breaking into the marketplace. And thanks to Travis and the coaches at Kansas, for them to raise their hand and sign up, to be a part of what I think will be a very, very special moment. And, basketball really resonates in that marketplace. If you see the success the NBA has had, they've been there, I think, since 2011 or 12 and have had an enormous amount of success. In fact, when I was the CEO of the Brooklyn Nets, I brought the Nets there in 2016. So, as Travis said, world-class venue, 22 million people in Mexico City. And I think it's going to serve as a wonderful student-athlete experience, and also seeding our brand there, not just for recruitment, but also for enrollment. Two of our institutions currently have offices in Mexico, Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. So it's a natural opportunity for us, just given the geographic footprint of the Big 12. So excited that Kansas has raised their hand, and I think it's going to be a special moment for us.
I do love the being able to sort of play both sides of that for Brett Yormark, in that we're starting this thing with two of our bigger brands in basketball in KU and Houston. And also, one of our institutions, Oklahoma, has a
right.
well,
yeah.
So you can claim both of my guests for like 6 months.
Exactly. There'll be an overlap there. It's a small little overlap.
That's right. But Oklahoma, I didn't know Oklahoma and Oklahoma State had offices down in Mexico.
I had no idea. And why don't the Texas schools? They just left over.
Like, we're close enough already in
That's
proximity.
another thing I love, because what have we heard the last 10, 15 years? It is all about football, okay? It's about football stadiums, football teams, football facilities, all that stuff. But what about no, you can't even say basketball. Don't say basketball. Don't do it. No other sports. You can't care about any other sports. He's like, look, basketball, in the States, it might be a, second place by a long ways, but guess what? Internationally, it's not. We're going to go international. We're going to find ways to make money with a sport other than football.
You know what's a bigger sport internationally than American football?
It is.
Basketball.
It is. A little bit.
That makes sense.
Basketball's a bigger sport.
I wonder, do they play soccer in any other countries besides ours? Could they make some money off that?
They play football in other countries, so they don't play soccer in any other countries. The NBA's even talking about going U.S. versus the world in the All-Star game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because now you're seeing so many freaking all-star world players. But Adam Silver said it's something that they will be discussing if that format, instead of the drafting format.
Unless Jokic is from Florida, then...
Because you've got a number of MVPs here recently, but they've gone the format to draw interest of drafting players and having the draft then televised and all of that stuff. But would be interesting, the USA versus the world.
Do they do that in the hockey?
I think they do.
Some other all-star game.
I also wonder if it's U.S. versus the world, how much does that increase maybe the competitiveness of some of the players going like, no, actually the world has better basketball. No, this is where it started. This is the, instead of like, oh, let's draft these guys and go have some fun. It's like, no, you play for the world, and it'd be bragging rights for the world players versus the U.S. players.
I'm telling you, Dream Team, it goes down as this great American team, and it was. But it probably did more for the rest of the world for basketball. Yes. they saw, okay, this is how far we've got to go, and they did, and they've caught up.
It's been unbelievable. What is it, 5 years or 3 years in a row that a foreign-born player has been an NBA MVP, and it happened like twice in the entire NBA history before these last 3 years?
Because you got Embiid this year, and then Jokic
and Giannis.
Embiid, Jokic, and Giannis. Wow. And there was like twice in NBA history before these last three players that have been NBA MVPs.
Dirk and Nash did it 3 consecutive years because Nash went back to back. I'm trying to see if
Nash won
Canada. Sure did.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize
Nash
I
forgot
won
this also. He was born in South Africa.
Yeah.
So,
he was?
Yeah. But
Man,
I think
Steve Nash has 2 MVPs. How many does Shaq have? Oh, he's got just the one? Oh, that's weird. Yeah, Nash is definitely a better player than Shaq.
That's what I've been saying.
We should always focus on MVPs. Let's hear from Travis Goff as he weighs in. Why are they on board with Mexico City?
It's multifaceted. I think any of the institutions can see the need to not just help expand the Big 12 brand, but really each institutional brand. We know the world's gotten smaller and smaller all the time. We know both the market of Mexico itself more broadly, Hispanic populations in general. When we think about every state in the U.S. and certainly Texas, Oklahoma, and of course in the state of Kansas, we think there's a student recruitment opportunity. We think in particular the sport of basketball resonates at a really high level. There are millions upon millions of basketball fans in that country and in the Mexico City proper. And then the last thing I'd say, Henry, is it's really great from a student athlete experience perspective. We get a chance in December of 24 to bring a group of men and young women to a place in which I would venture to guess none of them have been to. They're going to get some cultural immersion and education that they otherwise wouldn't have received. They're going to get a chance to make a difference in the community in all likelihood, and they're going to learn and grow through that experience, and of course play in a world-class arena in front of a crowd of what we think will be 20,000 plus.
It makes total sense for KU to volunteer to be a part of this, to head down to Mexico City. and do that. And that doesn't even count as the foreign trip also for some of these teams. I guess because the foreign trip would be over the summer, so of course it doesn't count for the foreign trip. But now that is now rounding out their non-conference schedule with Houston in Mexico City. And then also, was that? I guess I totally missed the part. Is it this year or next year? Like even when
the 24 December of 24.
Yes.
So right before the conference season starts,
right,
not this season, but next season.
Next year, yes. So
and then that bowl game would be the 26.
26, right? Because the
they're
25
talking about that
season,
makes total sense.
And 26 or whatever, or the 26th season of that, and if it goes over into January.
Look, I know it's the biggest country in Latin America, but it's just one of many. I mean, traveling down, I've been to Jamaica a couple times, the Dominican, been to Haiti, and I always talk, with locals about the sports, and basketball is the number 2 sport down there after baseball. It's hoops. It's ahead of soccer in a lot of those. Maybe not in Mexico, but on a lot of those Caribbean isles, basketball is so big. Bahamas.
Yeah,
we've seen great players like Buddy Hield come from there, and some others, and so I think it's kind of a brilliant idea. Kind of one that's like, wait, why wasn't this done beforehand?
Yeah, and to me, it's like when we're talking about Pac-12 teams, that I had mentioned earlier in the show that the Pac-12 teams have agreed to go to dinner, but they want the country to think that they're getting married. And all they've done is, or at least maybe they don't want the country, the higher-ups at the Pac-12 want the media members that cover the Pac-12 to then release information that says they're actually getting married, even though they're just going to dinner together, because they have agreed verbally in a grant of rights for the conference contingent upon when / if the TV contract deal is done. That is a whole lot of heavy lifting by a lot of different words there that is being presented as, see, Big 12, you're not getting the Pac-12 teams anymore because they're going to give up a grant of rights. Yeah, and when the Big 12 team sat down after Colorado and Nebraska went elsewhere, they all sat in a room and said, we are totally committed to everybody in this room. All right, adjourned. Big Ten, are you guys still open? SEC, are you guys still open?
Succession meeting, right? With the
Pac-12,
family, Roy's.
Pac-12, are you guys still open right now? No, we would absolutely love to come. Can we have the Longhorn Network though? We can't. Well, let's work this out. Let's keep the line of communication. What's that? No. We're good. We're good. Right here. Right. We are right here. Big 12. Big 12. That is what it's all about. We are Big 12 right now. To hell with Nebraska and Colorado. Hold on. I got to take this call real quick. That's what the Pac-12 is going through right now. We have agreed verbally to a grant of rights when and if a TV contract is done, when the Big 12's already taken care of theirs and ESPN has already said they're not getting involved in the negotiations with the Pac-12, that they're out.
I can just see them talking with the TV execs saying, the execs saying, okay, if you guys are together, we'll give you a TV deal. That's right. We will be together after a TV deal. No. This is the other way around. If you guys are together, we'll give you a TV. That's right. After you give us that TV deal, we'll be together.
Totally going to stay together, depending on exactly
one's the cart, one's the horse, but we're on different.
This horse is actually has a broken leg, and the cart is pulling.
Right.
I don't know what's pulling the cart, but the cart is actually pulling the horse. It is odd, but yeah, like I do appreciate some in the media around the Pac-12 that are like, see, told you, it was never a question. Yeah, because that's why Colorado or Arizona, that after these meetings then said, but we also have a responsibility to do what's in the best interest of this university, which is exactly what some in the Big 12 said after those meetings, that it was, we're all in this together. And then publicly, yes, but we also have to do what's in the best interest of insert team here. Well, I thought we just agreed that everybody was in this together. Oh, yeah, we are. Unless this conference calls, I mentioned in the first hour, the old Chris Rock bit that a man is only as dedicated or as loyal as his options, as the bit that he had. Like, these schools are only as loyal to their conference as their options are. Florida State and Clemson are only loyal to the ACC because contractually and monetarily they can't leave, or they would have left already. But they can't give up their grant of rights for the next 10 years, and it would be detrimental to what they can do financially. But if they could leave right now, they would not be in the ACC. It is a marriage by contract with those teams in the ACC right now. They don't want to be there. And there are some teams in the Pac-12 that maybe don't want to be there either. Like the Pac-12 isn't going to lose USC and UCLA and then say, hey, Colorado and Utah and the Arizonas, stay here with this deal that we believe you might actually be taking less than what you're making right now. But don't worry, we're going to add San Diego State. It's a little bit what the Big 12's going through, and it was like, oh, you lost Oklahoma and Texas, but you're going to add BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston. Cool. Nice job. Well, if they're going to get to 16, they might add the four corners of the Pac-12, four corner schools in the Pac-12. Or they could go and add in, UConn. They took a site visit to Memphis. How much that does for, them. I mean, there's the odds out at bookies.com of the odds of the Big 12 expansion teams. Number one odds-on favorite is Colorado at plus 250 with an implied probability of just around 30%.
I love that implied probability.
It's great, right? Arizona's plus 400. Memphis plus 650 because, these odds these odds come out the day after they take a site visit to Memphis. The Big 12 does with Brett Yormark and others and the Big 12 dignitaries. San Diego State plus 750. UConn plus 850. Louisville plus 1,000. Arizona State plus 1,200, Utah plus 1,200, even though it's in a kind of Colorado-Utah has been talked about in Arizona. And then the Field, that's the Field University, TFU, is plus 800. Or is it the Field College? I'm not sure. TFC.
If you got the Arizonas and Colorado and one more, and that would get you to 16, right?
So Colorado, Utah, and the Arizonas?
Yeah, but although I've heard, it's Utah-BYU thing, they don't want to be in the same conference, or is that a thing?
That is true.
Yeah.
That Utah doesn't want to.
But if they did, or throw in a San Diego State, whoever,
But it's also like the Pac-12 doesn't want religious institutions in their conference. So that's one of the reasons why BYU was never going to join the Pac-12. It's just one of the things that they want to avoid.
Yep.
So whether it's Utah and getting the Holy War back with Utah and BYU or not, whether they'd be on board with that. But I would say that, hey, Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State are coming to the Big 12. Don't worry, Utah, you don't have to go.
Yeah.
You don't have to go. You can stay in the Pac-12 because Washington and Oregon are going to head to the Big 10. But enjoy San Diego State. It should be fun. Boise's probably available. You do that, Utah.
I think that would be more than coming out ahead with Oklahoma and Texas leaving. It'd be replacing quality with quantity, right? But it'd be a lot of quality. The Arizona schools would be huge. You throw in the four that are coming in that bring a lot of their own cachet. Is it Oklahoma level in talent? Maybe not. Is it Texas level in reputation? Hell no. And certainly talent. It's up there with Texas. But I think they would come out ahead. You'd get to 16 before anybody else, or no? I guess at the same time as everybody else.
Yeah, because the SEC and the Big Ten are at 16, and the ACC.
Big Ten would be Big Ten would be at 16 with USC and UCLA, and then SEC.
And
but
Pac-12 would be at
right
6,
there. And so, but you've firmly in numbers wise, you'd be equal to Big Ten and SEC, and you would firmly establish yourself as the third conference, which I think is would be great for the Big 12 right now, because for a while it was number 5.
And for a while, it was just wait until somebody else gets picked apart and you dissolve.
Because you're right here in the middle, and all these coastal conferences, along with the Big Ten, they're just going to pick you apart.
You're landlocked.
It's taken a while. It's taken over a decade here, and it's taken a kind of a visionary here with Brett Yormark, but I just love the direction they're going.
If the Big 12 gets those four corner schools from the Pac-12, Colorado, Utah, and the Arizonas, if they end up with those schools, Oklahoma and Texas, in a roundabout way, could have saved the Big 12. Because the Pac-12 was going to try to take teams from the Big 12. But when Oklahoma and Texas left, USC and UCLA then said, we're getting on board with this. We're going to the Big 10. And then the Pac-12 started falling apart, which then opened the West for the Big 12 because the Big 12 was landlocked. The Pac-12 is now landlocked in having an ocean to their left, and the Big 12 that's strong, and it has a better TV deal than the Pac-12 can get.
And the door opening to the West cracked open too with bringing in BYU to the conference. And that's another piece.
No doubt about that. Yeah, but in a strange way, like Oklahoma and Texas leaving, which then had a ripple effect of USC and UCLA going, we're not going to be left behind in this Pac-12. with these teams doing that. We're going to the Big Ten. This is going to be, across the country. And now all of a sudden, the Big 12 can add these 4 schools. Like, it's amazing.
I'm trying to think, would they be in all 4 time zones, or they wouldn't be in the Pacific?
They would have.
Well, Arizona doesn't do daylight savings time, so they would be for like 4 months.
Yeah.
Or no, I guess, but 8 months they would be in the Pacific time zone.
But even if they didn't cover all of those specific time zones, they would have every single TV network time slot available. That the late night Pac-12 games can now be a late night Big 12 game. You would have the early morning 11. And you would have the late night 9:30, kickoff.
I mean, look, ideally, I would love the old Big 12, old Big 8. I love just the teams around here, geographical.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the reality. So, but in this reality, that seems ideal.
Stability.
Honestly, yeah.
It's stability in a world that is lacking thereof, especially with this conference for the last 13, 14 years or whatever. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We will continue rolling. The Royals back in action in Baltimore. I do want to play one quick clip from Wednesday's game from Matt Quatrero that we can talk about a little bit, and then we got the cuts before this show is over. More Zone rolling along on this Friday edition. NBA Game 4 coming up tonight right here on Sports Radio 810, coverage 6:30, tip-off around 7:30. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. So we've got a programming adjustment that I need to correct because I said that NBA pregame is going to start at 6:30. That's not going to happen. Okay, we're going to join the NBA Game 4 Finals around 7:30 because we've got something else going on tonight. Josh, what's taking place around 6 o'clock?
We will be out at Legends Field for Marquez Valdez-Scantling's charity softball game.
Awesome.
I'll be out there. Sterling Holmes will be out there. We're going to have a whole bunch of the 810 crew. Steven will be out there. I think you can see him in stadium throughout the events. But me and Stu will be live here starting at 6 and going up until about tip-off of the NBA game.
So are you going to just be like walking around the softball field? Is it going to be like mic'd up players where
I keep hoping that they're just going to let me play. But so far, that is not. I've not been invited. So, in the absence of me getting to hold a bat, I'll probably be holding a microphone of some sort and trying to talk to a bunch of the Chiefs that are going to be out there. The list is long, and expect to see a ton of members of both sides of the ball, offense versus defense. Although they have like twice as many offensive players who are there right now, so I don't know how that's going to play out in the game.
List start with
Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Let me see.
It's his deal, but it doesn't start with him.
Levon?
I think that Sterling Holmes. No, I'm sorry. It's Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, yeah.
Mahomes, not Holmes. That makes sense.
I did like the story that
Sterling Mahomes and Sterling Holmes might be at the same place.
They should both be there.
I did love the story that Sterling told of Big Slick because he was working the big event in the auction. And so he said he was talking with Patrick and Brittany, as one does.
Patrick and Brittany
Johnson.
Okay.
Yes. And he said, "Yeah, hi, my name's Sterling Holmes." And he said, "They go, no way, our daughter's Sterling. It's Sterling Mahomes," as if like people didn't already know that.
And Sterling said, "I know it ruined my life."
No, Sterling was like, "Oh yeah, I knew that. Yeah, that's pretty like." And it's a little endearing, by the way.
It's great
that the Mahomes are like, no way, we've got a daughter named like as if you would just randomly, meet somebody like, dude, I've got a son named Everett. Your son's there. Oh, that's really cool. Our daughter's name's Sterling Mahomes, and you're Sterling Holmes. Like,
is he upset about it like Michael Bolton in Office Space?
Just
I was fine until that no talent ass cloud came around.
Became famous, started winning Grammys. You can just call me Mike.
If I talk to Mahomes today, I'm going to tell him my name is Bronze Briscoe.
Bronze Holmes is what you should go by. My name is actually Patrick Holmes. It's weird, with an L, just like the street. It's
my name is
odd.
Patrick Mahouses.
Would you believe Brittany Holmes? It's named after my mom. Yes. Brittany.
Hi, my name is Showtime.
So that's going on tonight?
That's tonight.
There's something every night. And so we were talking about it yesterday out of practice. Like, this is the first time the Chiefs have had the Super Bowl tour. And felt the Super Bowl hangover. They didn't have it because of COVID after Super Bowl 54. There is something every night somewhere that some of them are doing.
Yeah.
And like I can see how it gets like exhausting. You can't turn the page right to the next season. It's still going. I mean, you take it, right? But see how it's hard to repeat.
Could you hold your own out there, Josh, if you were invited to play softball with the fellas?
I think
professional athletes.
I could track a softball if it's hit high and very near where I started from. Like I think I would be able to catch it out of the sky.
Oh yeah,
but that's
slow pitch softball, right?
Pretty much what I'm.
Plus, you're also talking about football athletes. You're not going up against the Royals had the fun little game with their dads that are there. But
I think Kadarius Toney is going to be faster than me, kind of regardless of what sport we're playing. So
maybe
I'm not going to get too big for my britches.
You got to get in a certain mindset to play slow pitch softball. I've seen really good baseball players struggle at it because there's 3 rules. You got to wait. And at the end of that, you got to wait some more. Don't start that swing too early. Wait.
Gotta
Explode.
wait. Keep that weight back. You got to wait with your weight.
Don't sway.
That's right. Matt Quattrero weighed in on Wednesday. The Royals back in action. They take on the Baltimore Orioles. No word yet on if anything will be delayed or canceled or anything with the wildfires that have made their way south. But here's Matt Quattrero on Wednesday with the defensive miscues that took place talking a little bit about that. But, while it is a rough season and there's not much to choose from, it is a curious quote considering the defense they were in. Take a listen.
It's focus, it's concentration, it's doing the little things consistently to just take the out when given the out or keep the double play in order. Those kinds of things usually just comes down to focus.
What was your vantage point on the fielder's choice there? Bobby kind of threw in the third when he had a chance to get out at first.
Yeah, exactly that. It's infield in, nobody out. Rarely do guys go on contact with nobody out, so it's take the out and we move on.
I feel like that is very contradictory of we're going to move the infield in. We're bringing the infield in because we don't want the guy on third to score. But Bobby, just take the out. Don't worry about that guy at third. Then move your infield back. If you just want to take the out.
He's basing it off what the guy at third base is thinking, right?
Who took 2 steps towards home, which made Bobby then react towards third.
It was the wrong play. You got to go to first.
I don't disagree that it was the wrong play, but I also feel like for the manager just to go, well, you got to take the out there. Then don't bring your infield in if you're only worried about getting it out in the 5th inning. Put your infield back and turn 2. Turn the double play.
No, he means take the out and not let him score.
But
the guy wasn't going to score, and he thrown to first. You look him back, you throw to first.
Right, but when he looked at him, Wendell had already taken 2 steps off third. That's when he started to run at him. It was a mistake. If he looks at him and pauses, if Bobby Witt was more towards short and looked at him and he paused, he'd probably go to first, but his momentum was already going towards third.
I don't think Q was saying you got to take the out there and give up the run. I don't think he's saying that there.
But it is interesting.
I think he's saying go get that out at first base.
Well, yes.
That guy ain't going to score.
Right, and I think he's saying that, well, the contact play wasn't on, which is true because he didn't just turn his head and run, but he did take steps towards home, which then adjusted Bobby Witt in what he was doing. I agree it's the wrong play, but I'm not really in agreement with the out was there, just take the out. Well, also, don't bring your infield in the 5th inning. I mean, have
you seen their offense?
I don't disagree, but you can't complain about a misplay on a guy trying to get somebody out at third when you're bringing your infield in specifically because you don't want that guy to score.
Yeah.
Because it's dumb to bring your infield in the 5th inning anyway.
Yeah, again, have you seen the offense? And I mean, he's answered a question there too.
I agree.
I wouldn't classify that as complaining, right? But I mean,
Bobby Witt would tell you he should have gone to first. Everybody watching would tell you should have gone to first.
Right? You look at Hosmer, look Hosmer back, you throw to first. What can go wrong?
Yes.
What can go wrong after that? You looked it back to third.
David Wright, just take the out at first.
That is very different because there was nobody covering third base where Hosmer didn't have to get back, so he could keep those 2 steps.
Yeah, that is true. I think the misjudgment by Bobby Witt was how close Wendell was to getting back to third.
Yes,
but yes, you look at him. He stopped running. You can go to first. You got to have the awareness of how quickly he can get there.
You got to throw. You got to catch. You got to place tag.
Yeah, for sure. But if we just want to get the out, then just turn 2. You got
first
the
out,
and third.
they still would have lost. How about that?
Agreed.
All right.
But you got first.
We are nitpicking. We are picking up. We're picking up peanut wrappers as the plane's going down. Okay.
Maybe it's because at the time I'm like, why do you have the infield in? All right, I know the offense sucks, but why do you have the infield in here in the 5th inning? And then him go, well, you should have just taken the out. Yeah.
Is there 1 out at the time or a 0?
Nobody out. You just take the out. Yeah, turn 2. How about that? All right, we will take a timeout. And we'll come back and we'll get the cuts coming up next. And we also want to raise the roof. Who's going to raise the roof, Josh? You?
Me and Sterling are going to be raising the roof starting at 6 tonight.
Christian Braun?
What about Brown?
I also
no.
I kind of think Miami gets the win. So I'm going to say the Heat raise the roof.
You're the first person to pick Miami in any series, in any game this postseason.
Just tonight, I'm going to pick them just tonight. I think the Nuggets win the series, but maybe I'm just sort of rooting for that series to keep going on. But that's who I think's going to raise the roof. Brought to you by Shamrock Roofing and Construction, Kansas City's local residential and commercial roofing contractors. One call does it all. The Heat are raising the roof. More importantly, and first, me and Sterling raise the roof from MVS's charity softball game starting at 6 o'clock. That's brought to you by Shamrock Roofing and Construction. One call does it all.
Quick as we go to break, some NFL news in case people didn't hear. DeAndre Hopkins is now taking a visit to the New England Patriots along with the Tennessee Titans.
Wants to win.
Which would be huge for the Patriots because right now they're the 4th best team in the East. And if they get Hopkins, they'd be the 4th best team in the East. So that's good for them.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com. In the
Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Briscoe and Drake McShafer hanging out with us, KSHB 41 Sports Director. And we're all looking forward to next week when Josh will actually have to work a full week. So
I'm making up for it. I'll be out at MVS's charity game, 6 to 7:30. Me and Stu tonight, everybody.
Yeah, so 3 weeks of vacation, you'll make up for it by an hour and a half of work tonight.
That's about how much I usually talk 3 weeks on the show.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any other big moments coming up? You need to take 17 days off? You go to the dentist or something like that?
Got a birthday coming up or something?
I'm going to get my wisdom teeth out at some point, so that's another one I've got just
You
sort
might
of
want to
baked
save that
in.
to 24 because I talked to Chad. You got no PTO days left.
Yeah, no, I
In fact,
figured.
you actually owe from next year.
That's fine. I'm hoping I can pay with my teeth.
Next year you have to work 16-hour days every day.
That's right, yes. You're going to do 4 shows a day. Good for you. I'm looking forward to it. All right, let's get the cuts before we wrap things up here on this Friday edition in the Zone. Drake, take it away. What happened this week?
Okay, but you can play that with one hand, though, right? You got you can just joystick it.
Oh, that's what happened this week, apparently.
Oh, what are you talking? It's not what
It
I
must
think
be
you're
like
talking
a
about.
video
is it?
game or something.
It's just about wieners.
And then they both started sucking. Only one was good at sucking, and the other one has failed
The other did.
at sucking. I really
a
want to know
really
what Mick was
salient
going to weigh
point
in
coming
there.
up. Yeah, I'm sure.
But I bet the point sucked, so we cut it off. That's fine. I'll just ignore it because I know it's probably
You
not
ignore
important.
my calls and texts anyway.
Well,
Do you?
Don't ignore
You're
them.
not a courteous texter.
I have a problem. I have a real problem.
With what?
With the whole texting.
You're busy cutting your hair.
Yes. No, my problem is, and I talked with Lebo there, I'm self-aware of it, okay? I know I have a problem. What I do is if I check it and I'm like doing something else, in my mind,
get back to that.
No, but in my mind, I've responded. Like I responded like, oh yeah, no, we could definitely do that. Let me just finish this up.
My
and then I'll
wife has
respond.
conversations in her head all the time. I'm like, you didn't tell me that. I absolutely did. No, you didn't.
Yeah. So the text, I said to Lebo yesterday, I had a text that was ready to be sent for 4 hours to Sandy. And I went and checked. I'm like, oh, send. I'm terrible with it. I wish I was better. That would be my one wish in the world is for unlimited wishes. And then one of those would be to be better at that.
Drake.
I went with 69.
Nice. There's no way marriage gets harder than planning a wedding and then going on an international honeymoon. I think we've done it. Anything else?
Yeah, kids. Yeah, kids. Probably have kids.
Just don't. What if we don't do that?
You're fine. Yeah.
All right, hell yeah.
Is that in stereo?
So good.
We've heard his platform before. You have to fight for your right to party.
My fellow Americans, you have to fight for your right to party.
Your mom, she's crazy.
Yeah. Like it was breaking news
I
to
had
me.
a lot of other comments about your mom.
Yeah, it'd make it. You ever see a French businessman in a suit walking with conviction, briefly pausing to take a fat rip off a Transformer dong? Spectacular. Blow cotton, me more.
Blow cotton, what is my love? Yeah, blow cotton, my love.
French.
We're going fishing, so maybe my phone will work, maybe it won't.
I
Don't
can't
try.
tell you how excited I am to find out Lebo got a call I didn't.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Great?
Very
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
What happened there?
Very nice. Guys, I've been on call 24 hours a day for 15 years.
That is true.
And when I find out that someone else got the call,
Yeah, that is that is.
What
great.
happens?
well, evidently I'm going to have to call myself because this isn't fair.
Somebody call Lebo.
Tennis match, golf tournament silence. Anticipation to see what. Oh, goodness! That ball had a family! In game 2, his first home run. A 2-run bomb. The hardest hit ball by a Red this year. That was nearly 115. It brought everyone to their feet.
Ellie De La Cruz in his first. Sorry about that. Ellie De La Cruz in his first home run. That ball had a family. Is a phenomenal call.
I'm up to here with people like Kent Swanson, Joshua Briscoe.
the
like
worst.
what? Come on, priorities, guys.
Seriously.
Priorities.
Yeah, irresponsible people. Kent Swanson he's supposed to be on this week. Went to Hawaii.
I just like being in the same sentence as Kent.
You both suck.
I'm being in the same state as him right now.
I'm not taking anybody lightly nowadays.
So it's a good lesson for you never to.
Don't. It's pickleball. Like you should see the people I lose to sometimes. It's like.
Well, let's hear that. Like,
I mean, it's hard to describe. Like they're people that kind of look like Nate.
What the hell does that mean?
Nate,
People that look like Nate.
Imagine me and Noah, and then like we look on the other side. It's Nate and Marco. Like, who do you think's gonna win?
Well, now I don't know.
What did I
Now
do?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
Marco hasn't
Now
done
they-
anything.
You're just staring at me, buddy. Like you're freaking me out.
You're freaking me out.
Is that Garrett?
Yeah, Garrett. At least the people I lose to in pickleball, they look like Nate.
That's great.
Oh, that is
We've
real
heard
quick.
his platform before. You have to fight for your right to party.
Did you hear the? It wasn't a bit.
Yes, it was.
It wasn't a bit. Travis said it wasn't a bit. Travis
He's
said,
wrong. Everybody else at the Chiefs yesterday was talking about
Oh,
how
I
they
didn't-
practiced it.
Oh, I didn't
They
hear
had
that.
to get clearance with the Secret Service and all that stuff.
Oh, I didn't hear.
They practiced. They
We've
went
gotten
and a
the
run through
okey-doke twice.
Yeah, no, that was a bit.
Masters.
When did they? When were
Deception.
they talking about that?
At Chiefs. It might have been off mic. You
Yeah.
probably listened to every word of it. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
No, it was.
But they forgot to hit
confirmed as a
send
bit.
on that text.
It did. It did.
I hate when that happens. Like, be considerate.
And I'm so glad that I can say things that Briscoe keeps adding in the cuts.
Hey!
and, you know that I
I was
love
just
it.
writing
I
down the
love it.
timestamp of that one,
Yes,
actually.
you
Les,
did.
12:39.
Yeah.
I have it written down
He
here.
did write that down.
Absolutely.
You do. You do make sure that anything Les says.
I really,
It's on the
he's
cut.
just had a couple real bangers. Edward Oliveira just got placed on the restricted list. Nate Eaton back up.
What's he's restricted for?
It just says placed on the restricted
What's
list.
a restricted list?
Well, my buddy who grew up in North Carolina, when he moved to Missouri, whenever he was grounded, he would say he was on restriction. So is Edward Oliveira's grounded for the air in left field?
I have a restraining order. Is it the same as that?
He's restricted from playing the outfield. So Nate Eaton is coming up to play the outfield. Edward Oliveira is allowed to play DH.
Seeing some stuff from like 10 years ago talking about it being sort of an unavailable list of some sort, an absence perhaps. So
In the outfield.
brand new from the Royals. We'll see what that ends up being.
In the outfield, though, right? Now, when he went to this list, did he
been
take
restricted
like
from scoring all year.
7 different routes to get there?
Summer is here. It's a time to vacation, get outside, and enjoy life with the one you love. But if you have erectile dysfunction, you know how it makes you feel. Embarrassed?